The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Warp fields bend spacetime in predictable ways. Subspace carries signals at calculable velocities. Matter and energy convert according to equations refined over centuries. But what happens when something appears that operates on principles entirely outside that framework? When sensors detect power readings that shouldn't exist, emanating from a structure that defies every theory of engineering and physics? Captain Jean-Luc Picard stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise D, studying the impossible image on the viewscreen. Where moments before there had been empty space near the Calandra sector, a quiet region used primarily for long-range sensor calibration, now floated a city. Not a starbase. Not a station. A city. "Report," Picard commanded, his voice steady despite the unprecedented nature of what he was witnessing. Lieutenant Commander Data's fingers moved across his console with superhuman speed. "Captain, I am detecting a structure approximately 6 kilometers in diameter. Configuration suggests a city ship of unknown origin. Composition includes materials not present in our databases, including elements with atomic structures that should not exist in stable form." "Life signs?" Picard asked. "Approximately 300 humanoid readings," Data continued. "However, the structure is generating an energy field that is interfering with our bioscanners. I cannot determine species or specific locations with current sensor resolution." Commander William Riker stepped closer to the viewscreen, his expression a mixture of wonder and concern. "How did it get here? There's no warp signature, no residual tachyon emissions from a jump. It's as if it just materialized." "The appearance was not instantaneous," Data corrected. "Sensor logs indicate a quantum fluctuation lasting 2.3 seconds, during which local subspace experienced destabilization across 17-dimensional axes. The structure emerged from what appears to be an interdimensional rupture." Picard absorbed this information, his mind already cataloging possibilities. First contact protocols required careful approach, but the technological implications of what Data described were staggering. "Can you determine if the arrival was intentional?" "Negative, Captain. However, I am detecting what may be emergency power configurations within the structure. Multiple systems appear to be operating at reduced capacity." Counselor Deanna Troi closed her eyes, reaching out with her empathic senses toward the distant city. "I'm sensing confusion, and fear. Not panic, but deep concern. Whatever brought them here, they didn't expect it." "Hail them," Picard ordered. "All frequencies." The bridge fell silent as Lieutenant Worf worked his tactical console. After several moments, the Klingon security chief shook his head. "No response, Captain. They are receiving our hails, but they are not acknowledging." On the view screen, the city continued its slow rotation, its central tower rising like a spire toward the stars. The architecture was unlike anything in Federation records. Organic curves mixed with geometric precision, a design philosophy that seemed to blend art and function into something transcendent. Lights glowed from thousands of windows, and Picard could make out what appeared to be landing platforms extending from various levels. "Captain," Data said, his golden eyes reflecting the viewscreen's light. "I am detecting weapons systems. Multiple emplacements throughout the city structure. The energy signatures are consistent with directed energy weapons of extraordinary power, potentially several orders of magnitude beyond our own phaser arrays." Riker's jaw tightened. "Are they targeting us?" "Negative. All weapons appear to be in standby configuration. However, the city has raised defensive shields. The shield technology is unusual. It does not operate on conventional deflector principles." Picard made his decision. "Maintain yellow alert. Keep shields at standby but ready to raise on my command. Continue hailing attempts. Number 1, assemble a security detail. If they won't respond to our hails, we may need to send a shuttle to make direct contact." "Captain," Worf interjected, his deep voice carrying a note of warning. "We should consider that this may be a trap. An unknown vessel appearing without warning, armed with superior weapons." "Noted, Mr. Worf." However, Counselor Troy senses fear, not hostility. "Until we have evidence of aggressive intent, we proceed with diplomatic protocols." Picard turned to his android officer. "Data, continue your analysis. I want to know everything about that structure. Power source, propulsion capabilities, origin if possible." "Aye, Captain." Deep within the city ship Atlantis, alarms still echoed through corridors of ancient metal and crystal. In the control room, a vast circular chamber dominated by holographic displays and control pedestals, Dr. Elizabeth Weir stood at the central console, her hands moving across touch-sensitive surfaces as she tried to make sense of their situation. "Report." She called out, her diplomatic training keeping her voice calm despite the chaos of the past few minutes. Dr. Rodney McKay looked up from his station, his face pale. "We're not in the Pegasus Galaxy anymore. Actually, we're not in any galaxy I recognize. The star patterns are completely wrong. Completely. As in, impossibly wrong." Colonel John Shepard stood near the city's ancient chair, his hands resting near but not touching the armrests. The neural interface awaited his command, ready to channel his thoughts into citywide systems. "Define impossibly wrong, Rodney." "I mean, we're looking at stellar formations that shouldn't exist within 12 million light-years of Earth or Pegasus. Either we jumped farther than any hyperdrive has ever jumped, or..." McKay's fingers flew across his tablet computer, running calculations. "Or we're not in our universe anymore." The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Taylor Emagon, standing calmly despite the crisis, spoke in her measured tone. "The question then becomes, where are we? And how do we return home?" Ronan Dex, the massive Saturdan warrior, growled from his position near the tactical displays. "We've got company. Large vessel, closing on our position. They're hailing us." Weir's diplomatic instincts engaged immediately. "Put it through." "I can't," Ronan said, frustration evident. "The signal format is completely alien. It's not Wraith, not Goa'uld, not Asgard, not anything in our database." McKay was already moving to another console. "Let me see it. Maybe I can." He paused, studying the incoming transmission. "This is sophisticated. Very sophisticated. They're using subspace carrier waves, but the modulation is elegant, almost musical in its complexity. Give me a few minutes and I can probably establish compatible communications protocols." Shepard moved to stand beside Weir. "What do you think?" She studied the holographic display showing the sleek, saucer-shaped vessel holding position several thousand kilometers away. It wasn't threatening, but it wasn't exactly friendly either. "I think we just made first contact with whatever civilization controls this region of space. And I think we need to decide very quickly how much we tell them about who we are and where we came from." "The ancient technology," Shepard said quietly. "Exactly. If this civilization is hostile, we can't let them know what Atlantis really is. But if they're peaceful..." Weir took a breath. "We may need allies if we're going to find a way home." McKay looked up from his work. "I've got good news and bad news. Good news, I can establish communication with them. Bad news, our one remaining ZPM is depleted to 43% capacity after that jump. We've got shields, life support, and basic systems, but if we get into a fight, we're going to lose. Then we make sure there's no fight," Weir said firmly. She turned to McKay. "Open a channel. Let's find out who they are." On the Enterprise bridge, Data suddenly straightened. "Captain, the city ship is responding. I am receiving a transmission. Audio only." On speaker, Picard commanded. A woman's voice filled the bridge, professional, controlled, but with an underlying current of tension. This is Dr. Elizabeth Weir of the Atlantis expedition. To whom am I speaking? Picard stepped forward, his posture relaxing slightly. A diplomatic overture. That was something he understood. Dr. Weir, I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. On behalf of the United Federation of Planets, welcome. We detected your arrival and wanted to ensure your safety. Do you require assistance? There was a pause, long enough for Picard to wonder what debate might be occurring on the other end. Then Weir's voice returned, and Picard detected a note of carefully measured relief. Captain Picard, thank you for your offer. We've experienced a navigational malfunction. We're currently assessing our situation. Would it be possible to arrange a meeting? I think we have much to discuss. Picard exchanged glances with Riker, who nodded slightly. Indeed, Dr. Weir. We would be honored. Would you prefer to beam aboard the Enterprise, or shall we send a shuttle to your vessel? Another pause. Beam. Data's eyebrow rose fractionally, his version of surprise. Captain, they may not be familiar with transporter technology. Picard filed that observation away. An advanced civilization without transporters? Curious. My apologies, Dr. Weir. My apologies, Dr. Weir. Beam refers to our transporter technology, a matter-energy conversion system that allows us to relocate personnel instantaneously. If you're unfamiliar with the technology, I would be happy to send a shuttle instead. A shuttle would be preferable, Weir replied, and Picard detected definite relief in her tone. We'll prepare a landing bay to receive you. Excellent. I look forward to meeting you, Dr. Weir. Picard out. As the channel closed, Picard turned to his first officer. Number 1, you'll accompany me. Mr. Data, Mr. Worf, you as well. Dr. Crusher, please report to the shuttle bay. Riker raised an eyebrow. You're going yourself, Captain. A city appears from another dimension, Number 1. A city inhabited by humans who possess technology we don't understand. This situation requires not just first contact protocols, but careful diplomatic handling. Picard allowed himself a slight smile. Besides, I wouldn't miss this for anything. As the senior officers moved toward the turbolift, Picard took one last look at the city on the viewscreen. Somewhere in that structure were answers to questions he hadn't even thought to ask yet. And perhaps, if he handled this correctly, the beginning of something extraordinary. The universe had just become larger, and more mysterious, than even he had imagined. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The Type 6 shuttlecraft Galileo descended smoothly through Atlantis's outer shield perimeter, and Captain Picard found himself studying the city's architecture with growing fascination. Up close, the structure was even more remarkable, towers and spires connected by elevated walkways, entire sections that seemed to defy conventional engineering by their very existence. The materials shimmered with an opalescent quality, as if the metal itself contained depths that changed with perspective. Captain, Data said from the pilot's seat, I am detecting significant technological sophistication. The shield we just passed through operates on principles unlike any deflector technology in Federation databases. It appears to manipulate spacetime itself rather than simply deflecting energy and matter. Dr. Beverly Crusher leaned forward from her seat behind Picard. I'm picking up some unusual readings from the city's inhabitants. Their biosigns are human, or very close to it. But there are anomalies I can't explain without closer examination. Worf's hand rested near his phaser, though he hadn't drawn it. Captain, we are being guided by what appears to be a tractor beam. It is pulling us toward a specific landing platform. Noted, Mr. Worf. Picard watched as a massive bay door opened in one of the city's towers, revealing a well-lit hangar beyond. But I believe they're simply ensuring we land safely. Data, follow their guidance. The shuttle settled onto the deck with barely a tremor. Through the viewport, Picard could see a reception committee waiting, 5 individuals, all appearing human, dressed in a mixture of civilian and military attire that suggested an expedition rather than a traditional military force. Interesting, Data observed. The hangar is maintaining an atmosphere despite the open bay door. Some form of containment field, though the technology differs from our own. Picard stood, straightening his uniform. Remember, everyone, we are guests here. These people are clearly far from home and in uncertain circumstances. Let's proceed with both diplomacy and caution. The shuttle ramp lowered, and Picard descended first, taking in his surroundings. The hangar was vast, large enough to hold several shuttles or small ships. The walls glowed with a soft ambient light that seemed to emanate from the material itself rather than discrete light sources. Equipment and supplies were stacked in organized clusters, suggesting a people who lived prepared for contingencies. The woman who stepped forward matched the voice from the transmission, mid-40s, professional bearing, with sharp eyes that assessed Picard even as she smiled in greeting. Captain Picard, welcome to Atlantis. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Weir, leader of this expedition. Picard took her offered hand, noting the firm handshake. Dr. Weir, the pleasure is mine. May I introduce my officers, Commander William Riker, my first officer, Lieutenant Commander Data, Lieutenant Worf, and Dr. Beverly Crusher, our Chief Medical Officer. Weir gestured to her own team. This is Colonel John Shepard, our military commander. A man with dark hair and an easy smile nodded, though Picard noticed his eyes constantly scanning, assessing threats. Dr. Rodney McKay, our chief scientist. A man with nervous energy who was already staring at Data with undisguised fascination. Tayla Emagon, leader of the Athosian people. A striking woman with elaborate hair styling and a bearing that suggested both grace and capability. And Ronan Dex. The largest of the group, a warrior by any measure, who regarded the Starfleet officers with wary respect. Athosian? Riker asked pleasantly. I'm not familiar with that world. You wouldn't be, Weir said carefully. It's not in this galaxy. In fact, Captain, I think we should speak privately. What I need to tell you is, complicated. Picard nodded. Of course. Though I should mention that the Federation Council will eventually need to be informed of your presence here. A structure of this magnitude appearing in Federation space raises significant questions. Federation space. Shepard's tone was neutral, but Picard caught the edge of concern. So we're in someone's territory. That's good to know. The United Federation of Planets is an alliance of over 150 worlds, Data explained helpfully. We are dedicated to peaceful exploration, scientific discovery, and mutual cooperation among member species. McKay was circling Data, his tablet computer out and scanning. You're an android. An actual, functional, sentient android. The positronic pathways alone must be, wait, are those isolinear chips? No, something else. The processing architecture is completely. He looked up at Data's face. Sorry. I'm being rude. It's just that true artificial intelligence was theoretically possible in our universe, but we never achieved anything like this level of sophistication. Data tilted his head, curious. Your universe, Doctor. You speak as though you come from an alternate reality. McKay and Weir exchanged glances. Weir sighed. Perhaps we should have this conversation somewhere more private. Colonel, would you escort our guests to the conference room? The group moved through Atlantis's corridors, and Picard found himself increasingly impressed. The city was clearly ancient, the technology had that particular aesthetic that came from civilizations with centuries to refine their designs, yet everything functioned perfectly. Lights responded to their presence, doors whispered open at their approach, and the air itself felt clean and carefully regulated. How many people live here? Beverly asked, her medical tricorder discreetly scanning their surroundings. Currently, about 300, Taylor answered. We are an expedition from Earth. Though not, we suspect, the Earth you know. They entered a conference room dominated by a long table and large windows overlooking the city's central tower. As everyone settled into seats, Weir folded her hands on the table and took a breath. Captain Picard, I'm going to tell you something that will sound impossible. A few hours ago, we were in the Pegasus Galaxy, approximately 3 million light-years from Earth. We were escaping from a hostile encounter and initiated an emergency hyperdrive jump. Something went catastrophically wrong. When we emerged, we found ourselves here, in a region of space we don't recognize, surrounded by stars that don't match any astronomical charts we possess. An interdimensional transition, Data said immediately. That would explain the quantum fluctuations we detected during your arrival. Interdimensional? McKay leaned forward. You're familiar with the concept. The Federation has encountered alternate realities on several occasions, Picard explained. Though the circumstances have always been unique. You're suggesting that Atlantis is from a parallel universe? Not just Atlantis, Weir said. Our entire expedition. We're human, Captain, but we're not from your humanity. Our Earth developed differently. Our history took different paths. And our technology. She paused. Our technology comes from a race called the Ancients, a civilization that existed millions of years ago and built this city. Worf's hand moved closer to his phaser. You claim this technology is not your own. We discovered it, Shepard said, his tone firm but not hostile. The Ancients, the people who built Atlantis, they were humans who evolved long before our recorded history. They ascended to a higher plane of existence, leaving behind their technology. We've been exploring the city and learning how to use it for several years. Remarkable, Picard breathed. An ancient progenitor race. We've encountered similar situations. The Iconians, the Tkon Empire, but nothing on this scale. Beverly was studying her tricorder readings with growing fascination. Captain, I'm detecting something unusual. The genetic markers I'm reading from our hosts are human, but there are subtle differences. Nothing dramatic, but enough to suggest a divergent evolutionary path. Parallel development, Data mused. Fascinating. The statistical probability of humans evolving identically in separate universes would normally be astronomical, unless there was a common point of origin preceding the dimensional divergence. McKay was nodding enthusiastically. Exactly. Which suggests that our universes share a common history up to a certain point, then branched. The question is when and why. A question for another time, perhaps, Picard said gently. Dr. Weir, I appreciate your candor. Your situation is unprecedented, but the Federation has protocols for first contact situations. You are, in essence, refugees, travelers displaced from your home. The Federation would be willing to offer assistance. That's generous, Weir said, though Picard detected caution in her tone. But I should be clear about something, Captain. Atlantis is more than just a city. It's a repository of technology that, in the wrong hands, could be catastrophically dangerous. Before we accept any assistance, I need to understand more about your Federation. Your values, your laws, your intentions. Riker smiled slightly. That sounds like the Prime Directive talking. Prime Directive? Shepard asked. Starfleet's General Order 1, Picard explained. We do not interfere with the natural development of pre-warp civilizations. It's one of our most fundamental principles. The acknowledgement that every culture has the right to develop at its own pace, without outside contamination. Weir's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. And what about civilizations that already have advanced technology? What are your protocols for them? The question hung in the air, and Picard realized he was being tested. These were people who had experience with powerful technology falling into hostile hands. They were protective, rightly so, of what they possessed. The Federation respects the sovereignty of all civilizations, Picard said carefully. We do not claim territory or assert authority over independent peoples. However, if your technology poses a threat to Federation worlds, we would need to establish protocols to ensure mutual safety. In other words, McKay said dryly, you're not going to just let us park a flying city in your space and call it a day. Would you? Worf rumbled. If an unknown vessel with superior weapons appeared in your territory? Ronan spoke for the first time, his deep voice carrying weight. In our galaxy, that usually means war. Someone shows up with better weapons, everyone else tries to take them. Or destroy them if they can't take them. Then you've dealt with hostile civilizations, Picard said. The Wraith, Taylor said softly. A race of beings who feed on human life force. They culled worlds, treated humans as cattle. We fought them for years. Beverly's face showed horror. That's monstrous. That's reality, Shepard said. Or it was, in our universe. Here, we don't know what threats exist. Which is why we're cautious about sharing information about our capabilities. Picard understood. These were people who had fought for survival against an enemy that treated them as prey. They had learned to be careful, to trust slowly. I appreciate your honesty, Colonel. And I understand your concern. Perhaps we can establish a foundation of trust gradually. For now, let me offer this, the Federation does not seek to commandeer your city or your technology. We would, however, like to understand it well enough to assess whether it poses any danger to nearby worlds. And if we refuse? We're asked. Then we reach an impasse, Picard admitted. One that would likely require Federation Council involvement. I won't lie to you, Dr. Weir, a city with weapons powerful enough to concern my android officer will attract attention. Some of it may not be friendly. Data raised a finger. Captain, if I may, Dr. Weir, are you aware that your city has already been detected by long-range sensors across multiple sectors? Standard subspace communication means that at least 36 Federation and non-Federation entities now know of your presence. McKay's face went pale. Non-Federation? As in, potential hostiles. The Romulan Star Empire maintains listening posts near the Calandra sector, Data explained. They are a xenophobic civilization with a focus on military intelligence and strategic advantage. If they detected your arrival, they will almost certainly investigate. Weir and Shepard exchanged looks. How much time do we have? Shepard asked. Unknown, Worf said. Romulan cloaking technology allows them to approach undetected. They may already be observing us. Wonderful, McKay muttered. We escape one crisis and land right in another. Picard made a decision. Dr. Weir, I propose a provisional arrangement. Allow us to help you establish defensive protocols and understand the political situation you've entered. In exchange, give us enough information about your capabilities to properly assess the security situation. Neither of us needs to reveal everything immediately. Weir studied him for a long moment. Picard had the sense she was reading him, using whatever diplomatic skills had led her people to make her their leader. Finally, she nodded. Provisional arrangement. We'll share some information, work together on immediate security concerns, and build trust as we go. But Captain, Atlantis remains under my authority. We're not joining your Federation, and we're not surrendering our autonomy. Understood, Picard said. He stood, offering his hand once more. Then let us begin as allies, if not yet friends. As their hands met, the city suddenly shuddered. Lights flickered. And somewhere deep in Atlantis's systems, alarms began to sound. McKay was already pulling out his tablet. That's not good. That's really, really not good. What is it? Weir demanded. Someone just tried to penetrate our shields with a high-frequency scan. Military grade, looking for weaknesses. McKay's fingers flew across his screen. They backed off when our systems auto-countered, but Captain, he looked at Picard. Someone out there is actively probing our defenses. Worf's hand went to his communicator. Worf to Enterprise. Red alert. Unknown hostile conducting tactical scans of the city ship. Romulans? Riker asked. Unknown, Worf said grimly. But we should assume worst case. Picard looked at Weir, seeing his own concern reflected in her eyes. The universe had just given them a reason to trust each other. Or at least, a common threat to face together. Dr. Weir, Picard said quietly, I believe our provisional arrangement just became significantly more urgent. The control room of Atlantis erupted into controlled chaos. Shepard moved immediately to the ancient chair, settling into its neural interface as holographic displays materialized around the room. McKay sprinted to his station, fingers dancing across ancient controls with practiced familiarity. Tayla and Ronan took positions at tactical displays, their movements efficient and coordinated. Picard watched the transformation with professional appreciation. Whatever else these people were, they were experienced at crisis response. I'm reading multiple contacts, McKay announced, his voice tight. 3 vessels, just decloaked at bearing 273 Mark V. Distance, 40,000 kilometers and closing. Romulan warbuds, Worf confirmed, studying a holographic display that had helpfully translated its readout into English. Deridex class. Heavy cruisers, heavily armed. Data stepped closer to McKay's station, his eyes tracking the ancient readouts with inhuman speed. Dr. McKay, your sensor system is extraordinary. I am detecting resolution capabilities far exceeding our own long-range sensors. Not now, Commander, McKay snapped, then immediately looked apologetic. Sorry. Crisis mode. The Romulans, whoever they are conducting what looks like standard hostile reconnaissance. Active scanning, weapons targeting solutions, shield frequency analysis. Weir stood at the center of the room, her command presence settling over the chaos like a steadying hand. Are they hailing us? Negative, Ronan reported. Just scanning. Picard moved to Weir's side. Dr. Weir, with your permission, I should contact my ship. The Enterprise can provide additional defensive support and potentially negotiate with the Romulans. Do it, Weir said without hesitation. She turned to Shepard. Colonel, bring all weapons online but do not target them. Not yet. Picard tapped his comm badge. Picard to Enterprise. Enterprise here, Captain. It was Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge's voice, evidently he'd been called to the bridge during the alert. We've got 3 Romulan warbuds taking up positions around the city ship. They're not responding to our hails. Maintain shields but hold fire. I'm attempting to establish communication. Picard turned to McKay. Can you open a channel to the Romulan vessels? McKay's hands moved across his controls. Trying to match their frequency, got it. Channel open. Romulan vessels, this is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. You are conducting hostile scans of a vessel under Federation protection. Explain your presence and intentions. The response came in a voice that dripped with aristocratic disdain. Captain Picard. How predictable that Starfleet would involve itself. I am Commander Velik of the Romulan warbird Kellion. The structure in question appeared without authorization in a region adjacent to Romulan interests. We are conducting legitimate security reconnaissance. The Calandra sector is Federation space, Commander, Picard replied evenly. Your presence here constitutes a violation of the Treaty of Algeron. A treaty signed before this artifact materialized. Its energy signature alone represents a potential threat to the Star Empire. We have legitimate security concerns. Beverly moved closer to Picard, keeping her voice low. Jean-Luc, they're looking for an excuse. Any excuse. Picard knew she was right. The Romulans had detected something powerful, something unknown, and their immediate instinct was to either acquire it or neutralize it. He had to change the calculus. Commander Velik, the city ship Atlantis is home to 300 civilians, refugees from another reality displaced by accident. They pose no threat to the Empire. I'm requesting that you stand down your scanning operations and allow us to handle this situation diplomatically. There was a pause. Then. Another reality? Fascinating. That would explain the exotic energy readings. Tell me, Captain, do these refugees possess technology from their origin universe? Technology that might prove valuable. Shepard was halfway out of the chair when Weir put a hand on his shoulder. Easy, Colonel. They're not even pretending, Shepard growled. They want our tech. Of course they do, Weir said quietly. She looked at Picard. Captain, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but these Romulans sound like every other opportunistic power we've encountered. They see weakness and they exploit it. The Romulans respect strength, Worf said. And they respond to clear boundaries. Dr. Weir, if we demonstrate that taking this city would be costly, they may reconsider. Data was studying a holographic readout, his head tilted. I am detecting a peculiar energy signature building within Atlantis' systems. Dar. McKay, are you powering weapons? Not me, McKay said. He looked at Shepard. Colonel. Shepard's eyes were unfocused, the look of someone interfacing with technology through thought alone. The city's defensive systems are coming online automatically. It's detecting threat profiles and preparing countermeasures. The city is sentient? Data asked, fascination coloring his tone. Not exactly, McKay said. More like, highly advanced autonomous defensive protocols. The ancients built Atlantis to defend itself. It's recognizing hostile intent and responding accordingly. On the view screen, new holographic displays appeared, tactical readouts showing the 3 Romulan warbirds in precise detail. Information scrolled past an ancient script, which McKay quickly translated. The city is cataloging their weapons systems, shield frequencies, structural weak points. McKay's voice rose. Oh, this is not good. The city thinks we're under attack. If it decides to defend itself preemptively, can you override it? Weir demanded. I'm trying. McKay's fingers flew across the controls. But the defensive protocols are buried deep in the operating system. The ancients designed this city to survive a siege by the Wraith. It's not going to just shut down because I ask nicely. Picard made a decision. Commander Velik, you need to power down your weapons and move to a non-threatening distance. Immediately. Is that a threat, Captain? It's a warning. The city ship has autonomous defensive systems that are responding to your scans as hostile action. If you continue, those systems may engage without the crew's authorization. Velik's laugh was cold. You expect me to believe that a civilian vessel possesses weapons capable of threatening Imperial warbirds? Your bluff is transparent, Picard. It's not a bluff, Picard said urgently. Commander, I am giving you information that could save lives. One of the Romulan vessels fired. It wasn't a weapons discharge. Merely a more aggressive sensor pulse, designed to penetrate shields and analyze internal systems. But to Atlantis' ancient defensive protocols, it registered as an attack. The response was instantaneous. From concealed ports throughout the city's structure, dozens of objects launched, small, dart-like projectiles that glowed with golden energy. They moved with impossible speed and agility, weaving through space like living things. Drones. Shepard was on his feet, his connection to the chair severed. Everybody hold on. The drones reached the Romulan ships in seconds. They didn't explode on impact, they punched through shields as if they didn't exist, penetrated the hull, and detonated inside. The lead warbird shuddered, its starboard nacelle erupting in green flame. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. "Cease fire!" Weir shouted. "McKay, shut it down." "I'm trying." McKay was practically climbing into his console. "The city's locked me out of tactical systems. It won't stop until it neutralizes the threat or runs out of drones." The other two warbuds were firing now, disruptors, plasma torpedoes, everything they had. The weapons struck Atlantis's shields and dissipated harmlessly, the ancient energy barrier absorbing firepower that would have crippled a starship. More drones launched. These targeted the second warbird, which tried desperately to evade. Its commander was skilled, the massive ship maneuvered with surprising grace, firing at the incoming drones. Several were destroyed, their golden glow winking out. But there were too many. They swarmed the warbird like angry insects, each impact causing devastating damage. "Enterprise to Atlantis." Geordi's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we're reading massive weapons discharge. Should we engage?" "Negative." Picard ordered. "Do not fire. This is a defensive response, not an attack." "Enterprise, hail the Romulans and urge them to withdraw." Data had moved to Shepard's side. "Colonel, may I assist?" "My positronic brain can interface with computer systems at high speed. Perhaps I can access the defensive protocols." Shepard didn't hesitate. "Do it." Data placed his hands on the ancient controls, his golden eyes unfocusing as he established a connection. Information flowed through his neural net at speeds that would have overwhelmed an organic mind. The system architecture is unlike anything I have encountered. It operates on multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously. However, I believe I can establish a command pathway if I... The third warbird was retreating, its commander finally recognizing the futility of the engagement. But the damaged first ship was tumbling, its engines failing, life support compromised. Picard could see escape pods beginning to launch, bright sparks against the dark. "The city's targeting the escape pods," Ronan said, his voice grim. "No." Weir's voice cracked like a whip. "McKay, Data, Shepard, somebody stop this now." Data's fingers moved faster than human eyes could follow. "I have accessed the primary defensive subroutine. Attempting to establish override authority, done. Weapons system standing down." The drones froze in space, their golden glow dimming. Then, as one, they reversed course and returned to Atlantis, disappearing back into their concealed ports. The silence that followed was deafening. The first warbird was dying, its warp core destabilizing, hull breaches venting atmosphere. The second ship had broken off, retreating to a safe distance with significant damage. The third had cloaked, vanishing from sensors. But the escape pods drifted in space, their Romulan occupants stranded and vulnerable. "Casualties?" Weir asked quietly. McKay checked his readouts, his face ashen. "The first ship, estimate 60 to 70% crew lost. The second ship took heavy damage but structural integrity is holding. Maybe 20 dead there." Picard felt the weight of those numbers. "Dr. Weir, we need to recover those escape pods. The Romulans will die if we don't act quickly." Weir nodded, her expression haunted. "Colonel, coordinate with the Enterprise. I want every survivor recovered. This wasn't supposed to happen." As rescue operations began, Picard found himself standing beside Data at one of the ancient consoles. His android officer was still interfacing with the system, his expression, as much as Data had one, troubled. "Captain, this technology is extraordinary. The processing capability alone exceeds our most advanced computers by several orders of magnitude. But the defensive protocols..." Data looked up. "They were designed to fight a war, Captain. A war that apparently required the complete destruction of anything deemed hostile." "The Wraith," Picard said, remembering what Taylor had mentioned. They said they fought a race that fed on humans. Yes. And judging by these protocols, it was a conflict that required absolute measures. Data paused. Captain, there are weapon systems in this city that we have not yet seen activated. If the drones were merely the initial response, I am concerned about what might happen in a full combat scenario. Picard looked around the control room, at Weir, whose diplomatic instincts had been overridden by ancient programming, at McKay, brilliant but overwhelmed by the consequences of his technology, at Shepard, a military officer who understood exactly what kind of power he commanded. These were good people. But they possessed weapons that could devastate entire fleets, and they had just demonstrated that fact to anyone watching. The Romulans now knew what Atlantis could do. And if the Romulans knew, soon everyone would know. Picard tapped his comm badge. Picard to Enterprise. Geordi, transmit an emergency message to Starfleet Command, Priority 1. Inform them that we have made contact with an extra-dimensional civilization possessing technology significantly beyond our own capabilities. Request immediate council oversight and diplomatic support. I, Captain. Transmitting now. Weir approached Picard, her expression weary. I'm sorry, Captain. That's not how we wanted to introduce ourselves. No one wanted this, Picard assured her. But the situation has changed. Your presence is no longer a secret, and your capabilities are now a matter of record. Dr. Weir, I'm afraid your isolation just ended. Every major power in this quadrant is going to want to know about Atlantis. Shepard joined them, his jaw tight. Then we'd better be ready. Because in our experience, when people want something you have, they don't usually ask politely. Through the windows, Picard could see the Enterprise moving into position to recover Romulan survivors. Beyond it, the stars hung cold and distant. And somewhere out there, sensors were recording, analyzing, preparing reports that would change the balance of power across known space. The city of Atlantis had arrived. And the universe had taken notice. The emergency meeting convened in Atlantis's conference room 2 hours later. The long table was now crowded, Enterprise senior staff on one side, Atlantis leadership on the other, with holographic displays showing tactical readouts, casualty reports, and subspace communications logs projected between them. Picard stood at the head of the table, his hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the assembled officers. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Let's begin with the facts. Dar. Crusher, casualty report. Beverly looked up from her PADD, her expression somber. We recovered 47 Romulan survivors from escape pods. 17 are in critical condition. Dr. Beckett, she nodded toward Atlantis's chief medical officer, who had joined via holographic link from the city's infirmary, has been exceptional in coordinating treatment. However, Captain, we lost 93 Romulan crew members. They didn't make it to the pods in time. The number hung in the air like an accusation. Weir spoke, her voice steady but strained. Captain Picard, I want to state for the record that the attack was not authorized by anyone in this room. Atlantis's defensive systems acted autonomously based on ancient programming we're still learning to understand. Understood, Dr. Weir, Picard said. However, intent matters little to the Romulan Star Empire. They will view this as an act of war. Then they shouldn't have fired first, Ronan rumbled. They came in aggressive, scanned us like we were prey, and shot when they didn't get what they wanted. Worf nodded approvingly. The Satadan speaks truth. The Romulans initiated hostilities. By their own code of honor, Atlantis's response was justified. They'll demand reparations, explanations, probably extradition of Atlantis leadership for trial. McKay looked up from his tablet, where he'd been reviewing system logs. They can demand all they want. We're not part of your federation, and we're certainly not subject to Romulan law. They attacked us, we defended ourselves. End of story. I'm afraid it's not that simple, Dr. McKay, Picard said. You exist within Federation space. Like it or not, that places you within our sphere of diplomatic responsibility. If the Romulans declare war over this incident, it won't just be Atlantis they target, it will be the entire Federation. The implications silenced the room. Weir leaned forward, her diplomatic training asserting itself. Captain, what would you recommend? Transparency, Picard said immediately. We share everything we know about what happened with all interested parties. We demonstrate that this was a defensive action by an autonomous system, not a deliberate attack. We offer humanitarian assistance to the Romulan survivors and return them safely. And we establish clear protocols to prevent future incidents. You want us to open our systems to outside inspection, Shepard said flatly. I want to prevent a war, Colonel. Data raised a finger. Captain, if I may, the Romulan Senate will be difficult to convince regardless of our transparency. However, there is a precedent. In 2366, when the Enterprise C emerged from a temporal rift, the resulting political situation was resolved through sacrifice and loss, Picard finished quietly. I remember, Mr. Data. Let's hope this situation offers better alternatives. Teyla had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now she spoke, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Captain Picard, I understand your desire for peace. But in our galaxy, we learned that some powers view diplomacy as weakness. The Wraith interpreted every peaceful overture as an opportunity to cull more worlds. Eventually, we had to accept that survival sometimes requires strength, not negotiation. The Romulans are not the Wraith, Beverly said gently. How do you know? Teyla countered. You tell us they are secretive, strategic, opportunistic. They scanned our home looking for weaknesses. They fired first. In what way are they different from any predator? Picard met her gaze steadily. Because the Romulans are capable of reason. They can be negotiated with, treaties established, peace maintained. It requires patience and understanding, but it's possible. The Federation and Romulan Star Empire have coexisted for over 2 centuries. Coexisted, we're noted. Not allied. Not trusted. Just, coexisted with a neutral zone between you. It's better than war, Picard said. Before Weir could respond, Geordi's voice crackled over the comm system. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Starfleet Command. Admiral Nechayev is requesting immediate contact. Picard exchanged glances with Riker. Admiral Alina Nechayev was brilliant, efficient, and notoriously uncompromising. Put her through, Mr. LaForge. The holographic display at the center of the table shimmered and resolved into the stern features of Admiral Nechayev. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, and her expression suggested she had been dealing with this crisis for hours without rest. Captain Picard, she said without preamble. I've read your report. 93 Romulan casualties, a destroyed warbird, and a city full of refugees with weapons that can punch through our most advanced shields. Please tell me the situation is under control. Admiral, may I introduce Dr. Elizabeth Weir, leader of the Atlantis expedition. We'll handle introductions later, Captain. Right now, I need to know if this city poses a threat to Federation security. Weir stiffened, but her voice remained professional. Admiral, Atlantis is a civilian expedition dedicated to exploration and research. We pose no threat to anyone who doesn't threaten us first. Your defensive systems just killed 93 people, Dr. Weir. Romulan military personnel who were conducting hostile scans and fired on us, were shot back. Admiral, with respect, we didn't start this fight. But we finished it. Nechayev's expression didn't change, but Picard detected a flicker of reassessment in her eyes. Noted. However, the political situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Romulan Senate is demanding answers. The Klingon High Council is asking questions about your weapons capabilities. Even the Cardassian Union has expressed concern about an unknown power appearing in the Alpha Quadrant. Captain Picard, I'm dispatching the USS Republic and USS Valiant to your location. They should arrive within 18 hours. Reinforcements? Riker asked. Or guards, McKay muttered, though not quietly enough. Both, Nechayev said bluntly, having clearly heard him. Dr. Weir, I'm going to be direct. The Federation Council is divided on how to handle your situation. Some members see you as refugees in need of aid. Others see you as a potential destabilizing force. Until we understand your capabilities, intentions, and long-term plans, you're going to be under scrutiny. If that's unacceptable to you, then we have a problem. And if we choose to leave? We're asked. Our hyperdrive is damaged, but it can be repaired. We could find uninhabited space somewhere far from your Federation. With what power? McKay spoke up, his voice tight. Elizabeth, we're down to 40% on our last ZPM. Every time we power the hyperdrive, we drain more energy. Even if we found somewhere to go, we'd arrive with maybe 20% power left. That's not enough to sustain life support for 300 people indefinitely. Then we find another solution, Weir said. Data tilted his head. Dr. Weir, may I ask, what is a ZPM? McKay looked at Weir, who hesitated, then nodded. 0-point module, McKay explained. It's an ancient power source that extracts vacuum energy from subspace. One fully charged ZPM can power Atlantis for centuries. We arrived in this galaxy with 3. Now we're down to 1, and it's depleting. Extraordinary, Data breathed. Such a power source would revolutionize Federation energy systems. Which is exactly why we're not sharing the technology, McKay said sharply. No offense, Commander, but we've seen what happens when advanced tech falls into the wrong hands. The Goa'uld used ancient technology to enslave entire galaxies. We're not eager to repeat that mistake. The Federation is not the Goa'uld, Worf growled. No, Shepard said, but you've got Romulans and Klingon and, what were the other ones? Cardassians? All of them would kill for what we have. So forgive us if we're not eager to hand over the keys to the most advanced technology in 2 galaxies. Admiral Nechayev's voice cut through the rising tension. Gentlemen, Dr. Weir. This posturing isn't productive. Here's the reality. Atlantis cannot survive in this universe without support. You need resources, repairs, possibly a more secure location. The Federation can provide those things. In exchange, we need assurances that your technology won't destabilize the region or be used offensively. You want us to surrender our ability to defend ourselves, Weir said. I want you to work within established diplomatic frameworks, Nechayev countered. Dar. Weir, I understand your position. You're responsible for 300 lives in a completely unknown environment. But you must understand ours. We're responsible for over 900 billion sentients across 150 worlds. Your arrival has created ripples that could become waves. We need to manage this carefully. Picard stepped in, his voice measured. Admiral, may I suggest a middle path? Dr. Weir, your expedition needs time to assess your situation and make informed decisions. The Federation needs time to evaluate the political ramifications and establish appropriate protocols. What if we agree to a temporary arrangement, a provisional alliance that gives both parties time to build trust? Define provisional, Weir said. Atlantis remains autonomous, Picard outlined. You maintain command of your city and your personnel. However, you agree to coordinate with Starfleet on defensive matters, share basic information about your capabilities, and refrain from offensive action except in clear self-defense scenarios. In exchange, the Federation provides material support, technical assistance, and diplomatic protection. How long? Shepard asked. 30 days, Nechayev said immediately. At the end of that period, we reconvene and assess whether a longer-term arrangement is feasible. Weir looked at her team. McKay gave a reluctant nod. Shepard's expression was unreadable, but he didn't object. Teyla and Ronan exchanged glances, a whole conversation passing between them in seconds. 30 days, Weir agreed. But Admiral, understand, we will not surrender ancient technology to anyone. We'll share information on a case-by-case basis, but the core systems remain classified. Acceptable, Nechayev said. For now. Captain Picard, you'll coordinate with Dr. Weir on security protocols. I want daily reports. And Captain, keep them out of trouble. The hologram winked out. Riker let out a breath. Well, that went better than expected. Did it? Weir asked. Because from where I'm sitting, we just agreed to military oversight from a government we don't know, in a universe we don't understand. You agreed to temporary cooperation, Picard corrected gently. Dr. Weir, I know this isn't easy. But the alternative, isolation in hostile territory with dwindling power, would be far worse. Before Weir could respond, alarms blared throughout Atlantis. McKay was on his feet instantly, his tablet showing red warning indicators. What now? Weir demanded. McKay's face went pale. We've got multiple contacts dropping out of warp. 6, no, 8 vessels. Various configurations. They're taking up positions around us. Romulans? Worf asked, moving toward the tactical displays. No. Data was studying the readouts, his expression troubled. The energy signatures are consistent with Borg technology. Captain. The holographic display updated, showing 8 massive cubic structures, each one bristling with cutting beams and tractor emitters. The Borg had arrived. And unlike the Romulans, they didn't bother with hails or warnings. The message that came through was simple, mechanical, and terrifying. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. Shepard was already moving toward the door. I need to get to the chair. If those things are as dangerous as they look. They're worse, Picard said quietly. Colonel, the Borg don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They don't show mercy. They will not stop until either they assimilate this city or you destroy them completely. Weir looked at Picard, and in her eyes, he saw the weight of impossible choices. Then we'd better hope ancient technology is as good as Dr. McKay thinks it is. As the team rushed toward their stations, Picard found himself thinking about the Prime Directive. About non-interference and letting civilizations develop naturally. The Atlantis expedition had been thrown into the deep end of a universe they didn't understand, facing threats they'd never imagined. But they were about to learn a crucial lesson about the Star Trek universe. Some threats didn't care about your origins, your intentions, or your desire for peace. The Borg cared only about assimilation. And Atlantis had just become their new target. The control room of Atlantis transformed into a war room within seconds. Shepard dropped into the ancient chair, his body going rigid as the neural interface connected. Around him, holographic displays erupted into existence, tactical overlays showing the 8 Borg cubes in precise detail, each one a perfect geometric nightmare 3 kilometers on a side. Shields at maximum, McKay announced, his fingers flying across ancient controls. All drone weapons armed and ready. I've activated every defensive system I can access, but, he looked at Weir, his expression grim. We've got maybe 200 drones left after the Romulan engagement. If those things are as tough as they look, that might not be enough. What are we facing? Weir demanded, looking at Picard. Data answered, his voice clinical but urgent. The Borg are a cybernetic collective consciousness, trillions of individuals linked into a hive mind. They assimilate entire civilizations, adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to their own. They adapt to weapons with extraordinary speed. What destroys them once will be ineffective the second time. They're basically technological zombies, Riker added. Except worse, because they learn from every encounter. Ronan checked the weapons locker near his station, pulling out what looked like an energy pistol. How do you kill something that adapts? You don't, Picard said quietly. The best anyone has achieved is temporary victories, destroying individual cubes, rescuing assimilated individuals. But the collective itself? It's vast beyond comprehension, spanning thousands of light years. Taylor's expression was troubled. They sound like the Wraith. But worse. Much worse, Beverly confirmed. The Wraith fed on life force. The Borg don't just kill you, they erase your individuality, absorb your knowledge, and turn you into a drone. You remain conscious, aware, but unable to control your own actions. That's horrifying, we're breathed. That's the Borg, Picard said. He'd been there himself, assimilated, transformed into Locutus. The memories still haunted his dreams. Dr. Weir, I strongly recommend you raise shields and prepare for immediate combat. The Borg don't issue warnings they intend to honor. As if to punctuate his words, the Borg cubes opened fire. Green cutting beams lanced through space, converging on Atlantis's shields. The ancient barrier held, shimmering with iridescent energy as it absorbed the assault. But McKay's readouts showed power drain accelerating. Shields holding at 97%, he reported. But they're drawing power from our ZPM at an alarming rate. If they keep this up, we'll be depleted in, he did rapid calculations. 6 hours. Maybe 7. Can we jump to hyperdrive? We're asked. Not with shields up. And if we drop shields to charge the hyperdrive, those beams will cut through the city like a hot knife through butter. Shepard's voice was strained, distant. The sound of someone channeling their thoughts through alien technology. I can feel the city wanting to defend itself. The drones are ready. Just say the word. Worf had moved to a tactical station, his warriors' instincts evaluating the battlefield. Dr. Weir, the Enterprise cannot provide significant offensive support. Our weapons will be ineffective after the first volley. However, we can attempt to draw fire from some of the cubes. Negative, Picard said immediately. Worf, the Enterprise is no match for 8 Borg cubes. We'd be destroyed in minutes. Then what do you suggest, Captain? We're asked, her diplomatic calm beginning to crack under pressure. Picard studied the tactical display, his mind racing through options. The Borg were predictable in their tactics, overwhelming force, adaptation, assimilation. But they'd never faced ancient technology before. That might provide an advantage, however temporary. We use their adaptation against them, Picard said. Dr. McKay, your drones, how do they function? They're kinetic weapons with energy warheads, McKay explained rapidly. They phase through shields, penetrate hulls, and detonate inside targets. The guidance system is semi-sentient, they can think and adapt their flight patterns. Data's eyes widened fractionally. Then the Borg cannot adapt to them in the conventional sense. They adapt to energy frequencies and weapon signatures, but if each drone operates with independent decision-making capabilities. They can't predict them, McKay finished. Right. But we've only got 200 drones. Those cubes are massive. How much damage can we actually do? Significant damage, if we target critical systems, Worf said. Borg cubes rely on distributed processing, no single command center. But their power distribution nodes are vulnerable. If we destroy enough nodes, the cube loses structural integrity. Shepard's strained voice cut in. I can see them. They're weak points. The city's sensors are showing me where to strike. Then strike, we're ordered. All weapons, Colonel. Don't hold back. What happened next would be recorded in Starfleet tactical databases as one of the most devastating displays of ancient military technology ever witnessed. The drones launched in waves. 50 at a time, golden streaks of light that moved with predatory grace. They didn't fly in predictable patterns, each one followed its own path, weaving and dodging with an intelligence that seemed almost alive. The Borg tried to target them with cutting beams, but the drones were too fast, too agile. The first wave struck the nearest cube. They phased through its shields as if they didn't exist, puncturing the hull at precisely calculated points. The detonations rippled through the cube's internal structure, and entire sections went dark as power systems failed. Direct hits, Data reported, monitoring from his position. The cube has lost approximately 30% of its power distribution network. But the Borg didn't retreat. The damaged cube continued firing while the other 7 maneuvered into better positions. More cutting beams lanced out, joined now by tractor beams attempting to immobilize Atlantis. "They're trying to hold us in place," McKay warned. "If they succeed, they'll probably try boarding action." "Let them try," Ronan growled. "We've got some surprises waiting for anyone who tries to board this city." The second wave of drones targeted a different cube. This time, the Borg were ready. They'd analyzed the attack pattern and deployed clouds of debris to intercept. Several drones were destroyed, their golden glow winking out. But the rest adapted, changing their approach vectors, coming in from unexpected angles. The explosions tore through the cube's infrastructure. One entire face collapsed inward, the geometric perfection destroyed. The cube began to list, its propulsion systems failing. 2 cubes significantly damaged, Worf reported with satisfaction. But the others are adapting their tactics. They're coordinating their fire, creating overlapping fields of cutting beams. Picard watched the battle unfold, his tactical mind cataloging every detail. The Borg were learning, but so was Atlantis. The city's systems adjusted drone flight patterns in real time, exploiting gaps in the Borg's coverage. It was warfare at a level of sophistication he'd never witnessed. But there was a cost. McKay's power readings showed the ZPM depleting faster than predicted. Each drone launch, each second of shield operation, drew precious energy. And the Borg had 8 cubes. Even if Atlantis destroyed half of them, the remainder would be enough to assimilate the city. "We need another option," Weir said, voicing what everyone was thinking. "We can't win a war of attrition." Data's fingers had been moving across the ancient console he'd partially interfaced with. "Dr. Weir, I believe I have identified a potential solution. The Borg cubes are linked through a subspace communication network. If we could disrupt that network, we'd blind them," McKay said, catching on. "Cut them off from the collective. They'd still be dangerous, but they'd lose their coordination." "Can we do it?" Shepard asked, his voice strained from maintaining the neural link. "Possibly," Data said. "However, it would require precise manipulation of subspace frequencies. The ancient technology in this city is capable of such manipulation, but I would need to." The lights flickered. Alarms blared. McKay's console lit up with red warnings. "They're cutting through," he shouted. "One of the cubes just adapted a new cutting beam frequency. It's penetrating our shields." On the tactical display, Picard saw it happening, a bright green beam punching through the iridescent barrier, scoring the city's outer hull. Atmosphere vented from the breached section. "Sealing bulkheads," Taylor reported. "No casualties yet, but if they maintain that frequency." "They won't," McKay said, his fingers dancing across controls. "I'm rotating shield harmonics. That should, yes." Blocked again. But Picard knew it was a temporary measure. The Borg would adapt to the new frequency, then Atlantis would adapt, then the Borg would adapt again. It was an escalating cycle that Atlantis couldn't sustain indefinitely. "Data, execute your plan," Picard ordered. "We need that collective link severed." "Aye, Captain. However, I will need approximately 4 minutes to calibrate the necessary frequencies." "We may not have 4 minutes," Riker said grimly. "We're made a decision. Colonel Shepard, I want you to launch everything we have. All remaining drones, all at once. Target the 3 nearest cubes and hit them with everything. That'll drain the ZPM to critical levels, McKay warned. We're already at critical levels, we're shot back. If we don't survive the next 5 minutes, power reserves won't matter. Shepard didn't argue. Through the neural link, he felt the city's weapons systems respond to his will. Every remaining drone armed and ready, awaiting his command. Firing, he said. 150 golden streaks filled the view screen, a swarm of deadly precision. They split into 3 groups, each wave targeting a different cube. The Borg tried to intercept them, but there were too many, moving too unpredictably. The impacts were catastrophic. The first cube simply exploded, its power systems overloaded, its structural integrity compromised beyond recovery. Debris scattered across space, glowing with residual energy. The second cube held together longer, but barely. Drones tore through its interior, detonating in cascading chains. When the explosions finally stopped, the cube was a hollow shell, dark and dead. The third cube suffered partial destruction. Half its mass gone, the remainder barely functional. It continued firing, but the beams were weak, uncoordinated. But the cost was immediate. McKay's console showed the ZPM dropping to 15%. Then 10%. We're running on fumes, McKay said, his voice tight. Shields are down to 40% strength. If they hit us again. Data? Picard asked urgently. 90 seconds, Captain. The remaining 5 cubes, 3 undamaged, 2 moderately damaged, adjusted their formation. They were learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics. Now they moved as one, their cutting beams synchronized to strike the same shield point simultaneously. The barrier buckled. Energy readings spiked. Atlantis shuddered under the assault. Shields at 20%, McKay reported. 15. 10. Now, Mr. Data. Picard commanded. Data's fingers moved in a blur. Through the ancient console, he sent a precisely calibrated subspace pulse, a signal that rode the same frequencies the Borg used for their collective communication, but inverted, scrambled, designed to create interference rather than clarity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Borg cubes stopped firing. Their precise coordination evaporated. They drifted, still dangerous, but no longer acting as a unified force. It worked, Data reported. The cubes have been severed from the collective. They are operating on local processing only, significantly less efficient. How long will it last? We're asked. Unknown. The collective will adapt and re-establish contact eventually. However, we have bought time. Then we use it, Shepard said. He was pale, sweat beading on his forehead from the strain of the neural interface. Because I'm not sure how much longer I can hold this connection. Picard tapped his comm badge. Enterprise, this is Picard. Status report. Geordi's voice came through, tinged with amazement. Captain, we've been watching from a safe distance. That was incredible. But the Borg aren't retreating. They're just recalibrating. Understood. Prepare to cover our withdrawal if necessary. Weir was studying the tactical display, her expression calculating. Captain Picard, your data just saved our lives. Thank you. Thank Mr. Data, Picard said. However, Dr. Weir, we need to discuss our next move. The Borg will adapt to Data's disruption eventually. When they do, we won't be here, Weir said firmly. She looked at McKay. Rodney, can we jump to hyperdrive with what little power we have left? McKay did rapid calculations. Maybe one jump. Short range, and we'd arrive with almost nothing in reserve. But yes, theoretically possible. Then plot a course. Somewhere far from here, somewhere with resources we can use to recharge. And where would that be? Riker asked. Dr. Weir, you don't know this galaxy. You don't know what's safe or dangerous. Weir looked at Picard, and he saw the steel beneath her diplomatic exterior. Then I guess we're going to have to trust someone, Commander. Captain Picard, you've proven yourselves in combat. You've helped us survive when you could have abandoned us. So I'm asking, where should we go? Picard considered. The question wasn't just about location. It was about trust, alliance, the beginning of something that could reshape the political landscape of the Alpha Quadrant. There's a starbase, he said slowly. Starbase 157, near the Pulsar Nebula. It's Federation territory, but remote enough to avoid immediate scrutiny. The nebula's radiation might even mask your energy signature from long-range sensors. You could repair there, resupply, and decide your next move without immediate pressure. And the Federation will allow this? Weir asked. I'll make sure of it, Picard promised. You've earned that much. Weir nodded slowly. Then she looked around the room at her team, at McKay, exhausted but still working, at Shepard, drained from the neural interface, at Tayla and Ronan, warriors who'd found themselves in yet another impossible situation. All right, she said. We jump to your starbase. But Captain, we're trusting you with our lives. With our home. Please don't make us regret it. You have my word, Picard said solemnly. As McKay began plotting the hyperdrive jump and data monitored the still disrupted Borg cubes, Picard found himself thinking about the Prime Directive again. About interference and natural development. About the moment when principles met reality and you had to choose which mattered more. The Atlantis expedition hadn't asked to come to this universe. They hadn't wanted this war. But they'd fought with courage and honor, and they'd proven themselves worthy allies. The Pulsar Nebula hung in space like a cosmic bruise, swirls of purple and blue gas illuminated by stellar radiation from dying stars within. Starbase 157 orbited a small moon at the nebula's edge, its modular construction and defensive platform suggesting a facility designed more for research than commerce. Atlantis materialized in a flash of exotic particles, its hyperdrive shutting down with what McKay described as a disturbing grinding sound that definitely shouldn't be there. The city drifted into position 3,000 kilometers from the starbase, shields at minimal power, lights dimming in non-essential sections as the ZPM struggled to maintain basic life support. Power at 4%, McKay reported, his voice hoarse. He'd been awake for nearly 20 hours straight. We made it, but that's it. We're not jumping anywhere else without a recharge. We're effectively stranded. We're stood at the control room window, staring at the starbase. Through the nebula's ethereal glow, she could see Federation ships docked at the station, smaller vessels, science ships mostly, but a few with the sleek lines of military escorts. How long until the Enterprise arrives? They're still 8 hours out, Taylor reported. Captain Picard transmitted our coordinates to Starbase Command and requested emergency docking clearance. And their response? The station commander wants to speak with you directly. Weir took a breath, smoothing her jacket. Another first contact, another diplomatic dance. Except this time, she was asking for help from a position of weakness. Put him through. The holographic display shimmered, resolving into a Vulcan male in his middle years, his Starfleet uniform bearing the rank insignia of commander. His expression was, predictably, neutral. Dr. Elizabeth Weir, he said, his voice precise and measured. I am Commander Savak, commanding officer of Starbase 157. Captain Picard has informed me of your situation. I understand you require material assistance and sanctuary. Commander Savak, Weir replied, keeping her tone professional. That's correct. We've experienced significant power depletion and our faster-than-light drive has sustained damage. We're requesting permission to dock for repairs and resupply. A city ship of your magnitude cannot dock at this facility, Savak pointed out logically. However, we can establish a supply corridor and provide engineering assistance. I am transmitting coordinates where you may maintain position safely. Thank you, Commander. We appreciate your assistance. Appreciation is unnecessary. Logic dictates that providing aid to refugees serves the Federation's interests in maintaining regional stability. Savak paused. However, I must inform you that your arrival has generated considerable attention. Starfleet Intelligence has dispatched representatives to evaluate your situation. They will arrive within 48 hours. McKay groaned. Starfleet Intelligence. That sounds ominous. It is merely standard protocol, Savak assured. Additionally, Dr. Weir, I am receiving subspace communications from multiple sources requesting information about Atlantis. The Klingon Empire has inquired about your weapons capabilities. The Ferengi Commerce Authority wishes to discuss potential trade arrangements. And there have been encrypted transmissions from sources I cannot identify. Likely Romulan or Cardassian intelligence services. Everyone wants a piece of us, Shepard muttered. Fantastic. Weir's diplomatic instincts kicked in. Commander, is there any way to maintain communication security? We'd prefer not to advertise our presence more than necessary. The nebula's radiation provides natural sensor interference, Savak explained. However, your arrival was detected by long-range monitoring stations across 3 sectors. I estimate that every major power in the Alpha and Beta quadrants is now aware of your existence. Then we're going to have visitors, Ronan said grimly. Probable, Savak agreed. I recommend you establish clear defensive protocols. Starbase 157 will provide what support we can, but our capabilities are limited. After Savak signed off, the Atlantis leadership gathered around the central console. The exhaustion was visible on everyone's faces, too many crises in too short a time. We need a plan, Weir said. We're vulnerable, low on power, and apparently the most popular topic of conversation in this entire galaxy. Suggestions? Fortify, Shepard said immediately. Use what little power we have to maintain shields and defensive systems. Make it clear that coming at us is more expensive than it's worth. Negotiate, Taylor countered. We cannot fight everyone. Perhaps we can establish relationships with some of these powers, create a network of alliances that discourages aggression. That's assuming any of them can be trusted, Ronan pointed out. McKay was running calculations on his tablet. I've got a different problem. Our ZPM is depleting even at rest, it's damaged, probably from the dimensional transition. At current drain rates, we have maybe 3 weeks before we lose life support. We need a power source, and we need it fast. Can the Federation provide one? Weir asked. Not one compatible with ancient technology, McKay said. Their power generation is impressive by normal standards, but ZPMs operate on completely different principles. We'd need to completely redesign our power distribution systems, which would take months and resources we don't have. Then we need to find another ZPM, Shepard said. Where would we get one in this universe? Nowhere, McKay said flatly. ZPMs were manufactured by the ancients millions of years ago. Unless this universe somehow has ancient installations we don't know about. Wait. Data's voice cut through the conversation. The Enterprise senior staff had remained aboard Atlantis to assist with the transition to the Starbase. Now the android stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. Dr. McKay, you said the ancients existed millions of years ago. In our universe, we have encountered evidence of several ancient civilizations, the Iconians, the Tkon Empire, the Preservers. Is it possible that the ancients existed in both universes? McKay blinked. That's actually not completely insane. If our universes diverged at some point in history, and the ancients predated that divergence, then theoretically there could be ancient installations here too. But we'd need to find them, Weir said. And we have no idea where to even start looking. Data tilted his head. Captain Picard has extensive experience with archaeological investigations. Additionally, the Federation Science Council maintains comprehensive databases of ancient sites and anomalies. With permission, I could search for energy signatures or architectural patterns consistent with your descriptions of ancient technology. Do it, Weir said immediately. Rodney, work with Commander Data. Find me a ZPM, or at least point us toward where one might exist. As McKay and Data moved to a console, Riker approached Weir. Dr. Weir, I know you've been through a lot, but I need to ask, what are your long-term plans? Even if we find you a power source, you're still stranded in an unfamiliar universe. Have you considered what comes next? Weir was silent for a moment, staring out at the nebula. Honestly, Commander, I don't know. Every option seems impossible. We can't go home, the dimensional rift is closed and we have no way to reopen it. We can't integrate into your Federation without surrendering our autonomy. And we can't survive long-term without resources we don't have. You could join the Federation, Beverly suggested gently. She'd been listening quietly, her medical tricorder still scanning, always the healer assessing needs. Become a member world, or in your case, a member city. You'd have protection, resources, support. And we'd be subject to Federation law, Shepard said. Federation oversight. Federation politics. Is that so terrible? Riker asked. The Federation isn't perfect, Colonel, but it's built on principles of cooperation, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence. You might find you agree with those principles more than you think. Before Shepard could respond, alarms blared. Ronan was already moving to tactical displays. Contact, he announced. Single ship, approaching from the nebula. Small, fast, and trying very hard not to be noticed. Worf's hands moved to the weapons console he'd been monitoring. A scout ship. Attempting to scan us under cover of the nebula's radiation. Whose ship? Weir demanded. Unknown configuration, Worf reported. But the scanning frequency is consistent with Romulan intelligence methodology. The Tal Shiar, Riker said grimly. They're not wasting any time. The scout ship emerged from the nebula's edge, a sleek predator of a vessel barely 50 meters long. It made no aggressive moves, simply maintaining position and conducting what were obviously intensive sensor sweeps. They're mapping us, McKay said, watching data streams on his console. Every weapon port, every shield emitter, every structural weak point. They're building a complete tactical profile. Can we stop them? Weir asked. Not without firing on them, Shepard said from his position near the ancient chair. And starting a fight with zero power reserve seems like a bad idea. Agreed, Weir said. But I'm not going to just let them catalog our vulnerabilities. Commander Worf, can you jam their sensors? Worf's expression showed approval. Yes. However, they will interpret jamming as a hostile act. Let them, Weir said. We're not obligated to let spies study us just because we're being polite. As Worf initiated jamming protocols, Taylor moved to Weir's side. Elizabeth, perhaps we should consider a different approach. If the Romulans are so curious, why not speak with them directly? Establish communication, set boundaries. The Romulans don't respect boundaries set through communication, Worf growled. They respect strength and cunning. Jamming their sensors demonstrates both. The scout ship's response was immediate. It broke off its scanning run and accelerated back toward the nebula, vanishing into the gas clouds. They're withdrawing, Ronan reported. But I'd bet my weapons they'll be back with reinforcements. Undoubtedly, Riker agreed. The Tal Shiar will report to their Senate, and the Senate will decide whether Atlantis represents an opportunity or a threat. Weir turned to the Enterprise officers. Commander Riker, you know these people. What should we expect? Subterfuge, Riker said immediately. The Romulans excel at indirect approaches. They might try to infiltrate your city with agents, bribe your people for information, or engineer situations that force you into compromising positions. They might also attempt direct negotiation, Beverly added. Offering alliance, technology trade, protection from the Federation. They'll try to drive a wedge between you and us. Why? Taylor asked. What do they gain? Access to your technology, Data explained. The Romulan Star Empire is engaged in a perpetual strategic competition with the Federation and Klingon Empire. Ancient weapons and power systems would dramatically shift that balance. Even partial access could prove decisive. Shepard's laugh was bitter. So basically, we're a prize everyone wants to claim. Or a threat everyone wants to neutralize, Worf added bluntly. The conversation was interrupted by McKay's excited shout. I found something. Data, look at this. There's a record in the Federation database of an archaeological site on a planet called Dacra 4. The description mentions crystalline structures of unknown origin and energy signatures inconsistent with known technology. The survey was conducted 40 years ago and deemed inconclusive. Data studied the data, his processing speed allowing him to absorb decades of research in seconds. Fascinating. The architectural patterns described in this report bear remarkable similarity to the ancient designs you have shown me. Additionally, Dacra 4 is located in the Valo system, a region that has experienced significant political instability due to Cardassian withdrawal. Is it accessible? Weir asked, hope coloring her voice. Problematic, Data said. The Valo system is near the former Cardassian Federation border. It is currently in dispute between several Bajoran factions. Travel to the region would require navigating complex political situations. But there might be a ZPM there, McKay insisted. Or at least ancient technology we could salvage for parts. It's a lead, which is more than we had 5 minutes ago. We looked at her exhausted team, then at the Federation officers who had stayed to help them. A decision was forming, one that would commit them to a path with no easy return. Commander Riker, how long until Captain Picard arrives? 6 hours now, Riker checked his chronometer. Then we wait for him, we're decided. If we're going to chase down ancient technology in disputed territory, we're going to need guidance from someone who understands this universe's politics. Someone we can trust. You're placing a lot of faith in Captain Picard, Shepard observed. He's earned it, Weir said simply. He stood with us against the Borg when he could have withdrawn. He's kept his word about helping us find sanctuary. And right now, trust is the most valuable resource we have. As if summoned by the conversation, Savak's voice came through the comm system. Atlantis, this is Starbase 157. We are detecting multiple warp signatures approaching your position. Klingon bird of prey, ETA 12 minutes. Klingon. Weir asked, looking at the Enterprise officers. Warriors, Worf said, a note of pride entering his voice. They will want to test you. To see if you are worthy of respect or merely weak prey. Great, McKay muttered. Another first contact. How many of these do we have to survive? As many as necessary, Weir said, straightening her shoulders. Because we're going to survive this. We've faced the Wraith, the Replicators, the Goa'uld. We've survived the impossible before. We'll do it again. Ronan checked his weapon, a fierce grin crossing his face. I like these Klingon already. Anyone who approaches openly instead of skulking in nebulas has honor. Let's hope they see it that way, Riker said quietly, watching the sensor display as the Klingon ship grew closer. Through the window, the Paulson Nebula swirled, beautiful and alien. Somewhere in that cosmic fog, Romulan agents were reporting back to their masters. Somewhere beyond it, Borg cubes might still be searching. And somewhere in the vast expanse of this unfamiliar galaxy, there might be ancient technology that could save them. But first, they had to survive the next 12 minutes. And then the 12 minutes after that. And after that. For Atlantis, survival had become a moment-by-moment proposition. And Dr. Elizabeth Weir was beginning to understand that in this universe, peace was not a gift freely given, it was something you fought for, negotiated for, and earned one difficult decision at a time. The Klingon bird of prey decloaked 3 kilometers off Atlantis's port side, its emerald hull gleaming in the nebula's light. It was smaller than a Federation starship but radiated menace, all angles and aggressive design, a vessel built for war. "They're hailing us," Taylor reported. "Audio and visual." On screen, Weir said, squaring her shoulders. The holographic display resolved into a Klingon warrior, male, middle-aged, with a mane of dark hair and a beard braided with metal rings. His ridged forehead and predatory eyes gave him a fierce appearance, but Weir had dealt with enough warrior cultures to recognize intelligence behind the aggression. "I am Captain Korath of the IKS Chuvat," he announced, his voice a deep rumble. "You command the city that destroyed 3 Romulan warbuds and fought the Borg to a standstill. I have come to see if you are warriors worthy of respect, or merely fortunate cowards hiding behind powerful weapons." Weir felt Shepard tense beside her, but she kept her expression neutral. "Captain Korath, I am Dr. Elizabeth Weir, leader of the Atlantis expedition. We didn't seek conflict with the Romulans. They fired first. We defended ourselves." Koratha's laugh was like grinding stone. "The Romulans are PTQ, honorless schemers who strike from shadows. That you destroyed them is to your credit. But the Borg? The Borg are the true test. Tell me, Dr. Weir, did you run from them, or did you stand and fight?" "We fought," Shepard interjected, stepping forward. "Destroyed 3 cubes, damaged 2 more, and disrupted their collective link. Then we withdrew because continuing the engagement would have been pointless waste of life." Korath studied Shepard with interest. "You have the bearing of a warrior. Your name?" "Colonel John Shepard, military commander." "Ah. So the diplomat speaks first, but the warrior stands ready." Korath nodded approvingly. "This is good. I was told you possessed weapons of extraordinary power. I wish to see them demonstrated." Worf stepped into the frame. "Captain Korath. It is unwise to request combat demonstrations from a vessel with superior firepower." Koratha's eyes widened. "Worf, son of Mok. I did not know you were aboard the city. Your presence adds weight to these strangers' credibility." He paused. "Are they honorable?" "They have conducted themselves with honor thus far," Worf said carefully. "They defended themselves when attacked. They showed mercy to Romulan survivors. And they have been truthful in their dealings." "High praise from a son of the House of Mok," Korath mused. "Very well. Dr. Weir, I withdraw my request for demonstration. Worf's word is sufficient. However, I bring a message from Chancellor Gowron himself." Weir exchanged glances with Riker. "A message from your head of state? The Chancellor is intrigued by your arrival. A city ship with ancient technology, warriors who fight the Borg. This interests the Empire. The Chancellor wishes to extend an invitation. Come to QNOS, meet with the High Council, discuss potential alliance between the Empire and Atlantis." "That's generous," Weir said cautiously. "But we're currently in Federation space under Federation protection." Koratha's expression soured. "The Federation? Yes. They will try to bind you with treaties and regulations, bury your warrior spirit under bureaucracy. The Empire offers something better. The freedom to act as you choose, to defend yourselves without apology, to pursue your goals without endless committee meetings." McKay snorted. "That sounds less like an alliance and more like a recruitment pitch." "Because it is both," Korath said bluntly. "The Empire respects strength. You have demonstrated strength. An alliance would benefit both parties. You would gain the Empire's protection and resources, we would gain allies with formidable capabilities. And access to our technology, Shepard said flatly. Of course. An alliance is an exchange of benefits. But unlike the Federation, we do not demand you surrender your autonomy. You would remain independent, free to command your city as you see fit. We would simply stand together against common enemies. We're considered. The offer was tempting in its simplicity, no complex regulations, no prime directive debates, just a straightforward military alliance. But she'd negotiated with enough warrior cultures to recognize the hidden costs. Captain Korath, I appreciate the Chancellor's offer. However, we need time to assess our situation before making such significant commitments. We've been in this universe for less than 24 hours. Korath's expression showed disappointment but not anger. A cautious response. Not what I hoped for, but understandable. Very well, Dr. Weir. The invitation remains open. When you tire of Federation restrictions, remember that the Empire values warriors who are not afraid to wield power. The transmission ended, and Korath's ship cloaked, vanishing from sensors. That was interesting, Beverly observed. He actually seemed reasonable for a Klingon. Korath is known for his strategic thinking, Worf explained. He is not merely a warrior but a tactician. The fact that he was chosen to make first contact suggests the High Council takes Atlantis very seriously. They want our weapons, Ronan said. Everyone wants our weapons. Not just weapons, Data corrected. They want the strategic advantage ancient technology represents. In a region where multiple powers maintain fragile balance, any significant technological advantage could prove decisive. Weir rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of too many decisions pressing down. We need to think about this carefully. The Klingon, the Romulans, the Federation, everyone sees us as a piece on their strategic game board. Then maybe we need to change the game, Shepard suggested. Stop reacting to everyone else's moves and make some of our own. Before Weir could respond, McKay let out a yelp of excitement. Data, look at this. I've been analyzing the Dacra 4 survey data more carefully. There's a reference here to subterranean chambers accessed through a ring-shaped portal. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Weir's breath caught. A ring-shaped portal? Rodney, are you suggesting? A Stargate, McKay confirmed, his voice rising with excitement. Or at least, something that matches the profile. The ancients built the Stargate network. If there's a gate on Dacra 4, that means there was definitely an ancient presence there. Which means there could be ZPMs, Shepard said, catching on. Or at least ancient power technology we could adapt. Data was already pulling up additional files. The survey team reported the portal was non-functional. However, they lacked the expertise to properly analyze it. With our combined knowledge, we could get it working, McKay finished. And if it connects to an ancient outpost, we might find exactly what we need. Taylor leaned forward, studying the data. Where is this Dacra 4? The Valo system, Riker said, his expression troubled. Which is, complicated. Define complicated, Weir requested. Riker took a breath. The Valo system was occupied by the Cardassians for decades. They withdrew 6 years ago following the Federation-Cardassian Treaty, leaving behind a devastated Bajoran population. The system is now home to several Bajoran colonies, but there's significant political instability. Some factions want Federation membership, others want independence, and still others are engaged in active resistance movements. The Maquis, Worf growled. Federation colonists who rejected the treaty and fight the Cardassians through guerrilla warfare. So we'd be entering a war zone, Shepard summarized. More like a post-war zone with active insurgency, Riker corrected. The shooting has mostly stopped, but tensions remain high. And the Cardassians still maintain intelligence assets in the region. They'd notice a city ship entering their former territory. But if there's ancient technology there, we're trailed off, weighing risks against necessity. McKay pulled up power projections on his tablet. Elizabeth, we don't have a choice. ZPM is down to 3%. We've got maybe a week before systems start failing. Life support, shields, everything. We need that ZPM. If there is one, Beverly pointed out gently. The survey data suggests ancient presence, Data said. While a functional ZPM is not guaranteed, the probability of discovering useful technology is statistically significant. I estimate a 67% chance of finding salvageable ancient equipment. Those are good odds, Ronan said. Better than sitting here waiting for power to fail. Weir looked at her team, seeing the same calculation in all their eyes. They were stranded, vulnerable, running out of time. A dangerous mission into politically unstable territory wasn't ideal, but neither was dying slowly in orbit while diplomatic negotiations dragged on. We need to speak with Captain Picard, she decided. If we're going to do this, we'll need Federation support. Navigation data, intelligence on local factions, possibly escort vessels. The Enterprise will be here in 4 hours, Ryler said, checking the time. Captain Picard will help if he can. Will he? Shepard asked. Or will his orders be to keep us here, under observation, until his superiors decide what to do with us? Captain Picard has considerable autonomy in the field, Riker assured him. And he understands the importance of archaeological discovery. If we present this as a joint scientific mission. An alarm cut through the conversation. Ronan was already at tactical, his warrior's instincts faster than the technology. Multiple contacts, he announced. 6 ships, dropping out of warp. Cardassian signatures. Cardassian? Weir felt her stomach drop. I thought they withdrew from this region. From occupation, yes, Worf said, his hands moving across weapons controls. But they maintain patrol routes along their border. And they are, intensely curious about potential threats. The holographic display updated, showing 6 Cardassian vessels in a classic patrol formation, Galar-class warships, heavily armed and armored. They took up positions around Atlantis, not quite threatening but definitely not friendly. They're hailing, Taylor reported. On screen, Weir said, preparing herself for yet another first contact. The Cardassian who appeared was younger than Weir expected, with the characteristic ridged features and scaled neck. His uniform was immaculate, his bearing military precise. But his eyes held calculation rather than aggression. I am Gul Evek, commander of the 4th Border Legion, he announced. You are the vessel that appeared in Federation space and engaged both Romulan and Borg forces. Your presence has generated considerable interest across multiple jurisdictions. Gul Evek, Weir replied, keeping her tone diplomatic. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Weir. We're peaceful explorers displaced from our home. We pose no threat to Cardassian interests. Peaceful explorers with weapons that destroy Romulan warbuds, Evek observed. Dr. Weir, I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to offer perspective. The Federation will tell you they are benevolent protectors. The Klingon will promise martial glory. But neither will tell you the truth about this region. And what truth is that? Weir asked. That power without understanding is dangerous. That this quadrant is a patchwork of competing interests barely held in check by fragile treaties. That introducing a wild card like Atlantis could destabilize everything. Evek leaned forward. The Cardassian Union has experience managing such complexity. We could offer you something the others cannot, knowledge. Political intelligence, strategic analysis, understanding of the true power dynamics at play. In exchange for? Shepard asked suspiciously. Dialogue. Nothing more. We're not asking for alliance or technology transfer. Simply the opportunity to establish communication, to ensure mutual understanding. Evek smiled slightly. Consider it an insurance policy. When the Federation's regulations become burdensome, or the Klingon demands grow excessive, you'll have another option. Weir studied him, recognizing a sophisticated diplomatic play. The Cardassians weren't making demands, they were positioning themselves as the reasonable alternative, the voice of experience and pragmatism. Ghoul Evek, I appreciate your candor. However, we're not making any commitments at this time. We need to assess our situation before entering into any arrangements. Of course, Evek said smoothly. I expected nothing less. But Dr. Weir, allow me to share one piece of intelligence as a gesture of good faith. The Obsidian Order, our intelligence service, has detected unusual subspace activity near the Valo system. Someone is conducting covert operations there, searching for something. If you're planning to visit that region, you should know you won't be alone. The transmission ended before Weir could respond. That was a warning, Riker said quietly. The Cardassians know we're interested in Dacra 4. How? McKay demanded. We just discovered the reference 20 minutes ago. They've been monitoring our communications, Worf growled. Or they have agents on Starbase 157. Data's expression was thoughtful. Alternatively, they may have their own interest in the site. If ancient technology exists on Dakra 4, it would represent a significant strategic asset. Multiple parties may already be aware of its existence. Then we're in a race, Shepard said. Whoever gets there first claims the prize. This is getting more complicated by the minute, Weir said, frustration creeping into her voice. Romulans, Klingon, Cardassians, everyone wants something from us or knows something we need. Beverly moved to Weir's side, her medical training making her sensitive to stress. Elizabeth, you need to rest. You've been managing crisis after crisis without break. Your team needs you sharp, not exhausted. Dr. Crusher is right, Riker agreed. The Enterprise will be here soon. Captain Picard can help navigate these political waters. Until then, there's nothing more you can do except prepare. Weir wanted to argue, but she felt the exhaustion in her bones. All right. 4 hours until Picard arrives. We use that time to rest, review data on Dakra 4, and prepare a mission proposal. Rodney, work with data on analyzing the ancient technology profiles. Colonel, coordinate with Mr. Worf on security protocols. Everyone else, get some sleep. We're going to need our strength. As the meeting broke up, Weir found herself standing at the window, staring out at the swirling nebula. Behind her, she could hear her team moving with renewed purpose, buoyed by having a concrete goal. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being maneuvered, that every faction that approached them had their own agenda, their own plans for how Atlantis fit into their strategic calculations. They'd come to this universe by accident. But staying here, surviving here, was going to require navigating a political landscape as dangerous as any Wraith siege. And somewhere in the Valo system, ancient technology waited, technology that might save them, or might make them even more valuable to the powers circling like predators. The game was getting more complex. And Weir was beginning to realize that in this universe, there were no simple solutions, only difficult choices and their consequences. The USS Enterprise dropped out of warp with characteristic precision, its nacelles glowing as it decelerated into orbit alongside Atlantis. From the city's control room, Weir watched the sleek starship maneuver into position, feeling an unexpected sense of relief. In the few hours she'd known Captain Picard, he'd proven himself trustworthy, a rare commodity in any universe. Enterprise is hailing, Taylor announced. Put him through, Weir said. Picard's face appeared on the holographic display, and Weir noted the concern in his eyes even as he maintained his diplomatic composure. Dr. Weir, I understand you've had several additional visitors since we last spoke. Are you and your crew safe? For now, Captain. Though, safe is becoming a relative term. We've been contacted by Klingon, Cardassians, and had a Romulan scout ship probing our defenses. Everyone wants to know what we are and what we can do. I'm not surprised, Picard said. Your arrival has created significant political disruption. The Romulan Senate is demanding reparations for their losses. The Klingon High Council is debating whether to extend formal alliance overtures. And Starfleet Command. He paused. Admiral Nechayev has ordered me to provide you with all reasonable assistance while maintaining Federation security protocols. That sounds diplomatic, Shepard observed from beside Weir. What does it mean in practical terms? It means Captain Picard has flexibility in how he interprets his orders, Riker said, appearing beside his captain on the display. Which is good news for you. Picard nodded. Indeed. Dr. Weir, Commander Riker has briefed me on your discovery regarding Dacra 4. I've reviewed the archaeological survey data, and I agree with Dr. McKay's assessment. There is a high probability of ancient technology at that location. But We're prompted, hearing the hesitation in his voice. But the Valo system is politically volatile. The Bajoran Provisional Government has tenuous control over the colonies there. The Maquis maintain a presence. And as Gul-Evek indicated, Cardassian intelligence is active in the region. Taking Atlantis into that environment could trigger incidents we cannot predict. We don't have a choice, McKay interjected, joining the conversation. Captain, our ZPM is at 2%. We're running on fumes. If we don't find a power source in the next few days, Atlantis becomes a very large coffin. Data appeared on the screen beside Picard. Dr. McKay is correct in his assessment. However, there may be alternatives to deploying the entire city. A smaller team could travel to Dacra 4 via shuttle, investigate the site, and return with any salvage technology. Leaving Atlantis vulnerable here, Shepard said. With minimal power and half our leadership away on a mission. The Enterprise would remain to provide protection, Picard assured. Additionally, I've requested that Starfleet dispatch the USS Defiant from Deep Space Nine. Captain Sisko has agreed to divert from patrol duties to provide additional security. The Defiant? Worf's voice carried approval. An escort would be wise. The ship is specifically designed for combat operations. Weir considered the proposal. A small team could move more quickly, attract less attention, and leave the city's population protected. But it also meant trusting Federation vessels to guard Atlantis while her leadership was away, another leap of faith. Who would go on this mission, she asked. I propose a joint team, Picard said. Specialists from both Atlantis and the Enterprise. Your expertise in ancient technology, our knowledge of the region and its inhabitants. Colonel Shepard, Dr. McKay, yourself if you choose, along with myself, Commander Data, and a security detail. I'm going, Ronan said flatly. If there's danger, you'll need warriors. As will I, Taylor added. My diplomatic skills may prove useful if we encounter local populations. Picard nodded. Agreed. However, we must move quickly. My intelligence sources indicate that we're not the only ones interested in Dacra 4. Several parties appear to be converging on the system. The Cardassians warned us about unusual subspace activity, Weir said. Do you know who else is heading there? Unconfirmed reports suggest Ferengi salvage operations, possibly Maquis reconnaissance, and, troublingly, a Borg scout sphere detected at the edge of the sector 3 days ago. The room went silent. The Borg, McKay said weakly. They're interested in ancient technology too. The collective assimilates all technology it encounters, Data explained. If they detected ancient energy signatures during your battle, they would certainly investigate the source. A Borg presence at Dacra 4 would significantly complicate any recovery operation. Shepard's expression hardened. Then we'd better get there first. Dr. Weir, I recommend we leave immediately. Every hour we wait is an hour someone else has to beat us to the prize. Weir looked at her exhausted team, then at Picard's steady gaze on the screen. Another impossible decision, another risk that could save them or doom them. Captain Picard, we accept your proposal. Joint mission, mixed team, Enterprise providing transportation and support. When can we depart? Within the hour, Picard replied. I'll have shuttles standing by to transport your team to the Enterprise. We'll proceed to the Valos system at maximum warp, approximately 16 hours travel time. I'll remain here with Atlantis, a new voice interjected. Dr. Carson Beckett appeared on the city's side of the display, his Scottish accent warm but concerned. Someone needs to keep the lights on and tend to our Romulan guests in the infirmary. Dr. Beckett is right, Weir agreed. Carson, you'll be in command while we're away. Commander Riker, would you be willing to remain as well? Your experience might be valuable if any other factions arrive. Riker nodded. Of course. We'll keep Atlantis safe, Dr. Weir. You have my word. The transmission ended, and were turned to face her team. They looked back at her with expressions ranging from exhaustion to determination to barely contained excitement. All right, she said. We've got 1 hour to prepare. Shepard, select a security team. People who can handle themselves in unknown situations. McKay, bring whatever ancient scanning equipment you think we'll need. Taylor, Ronan, full field gear. This could be archaeological survey or combat mission. We prepare for both. As her team dispersed to gather equipment, McKay lingered. Elizabeth, I need to say something. If this doesn't work, if there's no ZPM on Dacra 4, we're out of options. This is our last shot. I know, Rodney, Weir said quietly. Which is why we're going to make it work. The Enterprise's bridge was a revelation. Weir had spent the journey from Atlantis studying the starship's layout, but seeing it in person was different. The clean lines, the efficient crew movements, the quiet hum of advanced technology working in harmony, it spoke of a civilization that had refined space travel to an art form. Captain Picard stood from his command chair as the Atlantis team entered. Dr. Weir, Colonel Shepard, welcome aboard. We're already en route to the Valos system. Warp 8, we should arrive in 14 hours. Thank you for doing this, Captain, Weir said sincerely. The opportunity to investigate potential ancient technology is thanks enough, Picard replied with a slight smile. I've studied the Iconians, the Tkon, the Preservers, all ancient civilizations that shaped this galaxy. To encounter the ancients themselves, even through their artifacts, is a privilege. McKay was already at a science station, his fingers flying over unfamiliar controls with Data's patient assistance. Captain, I've been analyzing sensor data from the Valos system. The planet itself is Class M, barely. The Cardassians strip-mined most of the valuable resources and devastated the ecosystem. The Bajoran colonies there are struggling. Which makes an ancient outpost even more puzzling, Data observed. Why would the ancients establish a facility on such a marginal world? Because it wasn't marginal 10 million years ago, Shepard suggested. Planets change. Maybe Dacra 4 was paradise back then. Or maybe the ancients weren't looking for paradise, McKay countered. Maybe they were looking for something specific. A resource, a strategic position, who knows? Geordi LaForge, the Enterprise's chief engineer, approached with a PADD. Captain, I've been reviewing the survey data on that ring-shaped portal. If it's anything like the Iconian gateways we've encountered, we'll need to be very careful. Ancient transportation technology can be unpredictable. The Stargates are stable, McKay said defensively. We've used them thousands of times. As long as you dial the correct address and establish a stable wormhole. You've used them in your universe, Geordi pointed out. We don't know if they'll function the same way here. Good point, McKay admitted grudgingly. We'll need to run diagnostics before attempting activation. Lieutenant Worf approached from tactical. Captain, I am detecting increased subspace chatter in the Valos system. Multiple vessels appear to be converging on Dacra 4. The race is on, Shepard muttered. Picard studied the tactical display, his expression thoughtful. Mr. Worf, analysis of the vessels. One Ferengi Marauder, likely salvage operation as you predicted. Two small craft of unknown configuration, possibly Maquis. And... Worf paused, his expression darkening. One vessel matching Borg scout sphere profiles, maintaining position in the outer system. The Borg are already there, Weir said, feeling her stomach sink. Observing, data corrected. A scout sphere's primary function is reconnaissance. They gather data and transmit it back to the collective. However, if they determine the site contains sufficiently valuable technology, they will attempt assimilation. Then we get in, find what we need, and get out before they make that determination, Shepard said. Simple. Nothing about this situation is simple, Colonel, Picard said. However, we have one advantage, the Enterprise is equipped with advanced cloaking detection and Borg tactical databases. We'll know if they move before they can intercept us. Beverly Crusher entered the bridge, medical kit in hand. Jean-Luc, I've prepared medical supplies for the away team. Dar. Beckett provided information on ancient technology-related injuries. Apparently, their devices have a habit of interacting unexpectedly with human physiology. Sometimes fatally, McKay added cheerfully. The ancients built amazing things, but they had a tendency toward lethal defense mechanisms. Wonderful, Geordi muttered. The bridge settled into the routine of long-distance travel. Crew members rotated through stations, status reports flowed steadily, and the Enterprise consumed the distance between them and Dacra 4 with elegant efficiency. Weir found herself standing near the observation window, watching stars streak past at impossible speeds. Tayla joined her, moving with her characteristic grace. You are troubled, Tayla observed. It wasn't a question. I'm leading our people into unknown danger based on a 40-year-old survey and a desperate hope, Weir said quietly. If I'm wrong, if there's nothing there, we'll have wasted what little time we have left. Then we will face that outcome together, Tayla said simply. Elizabeth, I have followed you through the Stargate countless times, trusted your judgment in negotiations with allies and enemies alike. You have never led us to ruin. I do not believe you will start now. The Wraith were predictable, Weir said. Brutal, yes, but we understood them. Here, every faction has different motivations, different codes of honor, different definitions of truth. I'm navigating blind. No, Tayla corrected gently. You are navigating with new maps. Captain Picard and his crew have proven themselves trustworthy guides. Trust that, if nothing else. Before Weir could respond, Ronan's voice cut through the bridge. Contact. Multiple ships dropping out of warp ahead of us. Red alert, Picard ordered immediately. On screen. The view screen showed 3 vessels, sleek, predatory, unmistakably Romulan. They'd positioned themselves directly in the Enterprise's path, a classic intercept formation. The Romulans, Worf growled. They must have been tracking us. A transmission came through, and Weir recognized the voice instantly. Captain Picard. How fortuitous that we should meet again. I am Commander Velik of the Warbird Kellyan, you may remember me from our previous encounter at Atlantis. Commander Velik, Picard replied evenly. You are currently blocking Federation space lanes. State your intentions. My intentions are simple, Captain. I wish to discuss the future of Atlantis. Specifically, the reparations owed to the Romulan Star Empire for unprovoked aggression. The 3 warbirds your refugee friends destroyed represented significant military assets. The Senate demands compensation. The Romulans fired first, Shepard said, stepping into view of the view screen. We defended ourselves. Ah, the military commander, Velik said, his tone mocking. Tell me, Colonel, does your notion of defense typically include the complete destruction of vessels attempting routine security scans? Threats wrapped in offers of cooperation, Geordi said. Classic Romulan playbook. They're fishing, Shepard said. They don't actually know what's on Dacra 4. They're hoping we'll lead them to it. Which we will, McKay pointed out. The moment we enter orbit, they'll know exactly where to look. Picard returned to his command chair, his expression thoughtful. Then we proceed carefully. Mr. Data, prepare detailed scans of the Dacra system. I want to know every vessel, every life sign, every potential threat before we enter orbit. Mr. Worf, maintain yellow alert. Everyone else, prepare for what may be a very complicated mission. Weir watched the captain work, noting how his crew responded to his calm authority with practiced efficiency. This was a man who'd faced countless crises and emerged with his principles intact. She found herself hoping that some of his competence would rub off on her own team. Captain, she said quietly, moving to stand beside his chair. Thank you. For everything. We're strangers from another universe, and you've risked your ship and crew to help us. Dr. Weir, the Federation was founded on the principle that exploration and discovery benefit all sentient beings, Picard said. Your expedition embodies that principle. Helping you is not a burden, it's a privilege. As the Enterprise continued toward Dacra 4, racing against time and competing factions, Weir found herself thinking about principles. The Romulans had principles, strength and cunning. The Klingon had principles, honor and glory. The Cardassians had principles, order and efficiency. But the Federation's principles, cooperation, discovery, mutual respect, those were the ones that felt most like home. And if they survived this mission, if they found the technology they needed, maybe Atlantis could forge a future in this universe built on those same principles. But first, they had to survive the next 14 hours. And then whatever waited for them on Dacra 4. The Valo system hung before them on the view screen, a yellow dwarf star orbited by 7 planets, 2 barely habitable. Dacra 4 was the second, a world that had once been green but now showed the scars of Cardassian strip mining across its surface. Brown continents, ash-gray oceans, and thin atmospheric cover that made it barely Class M by Federation standards. Sensor sweep complete, Data reported from his station. I am detecting 11 vessels in the system. The Borg Scout sphere maintains position in the outer system, approximately 6 AU from Dacra 4. The Ferengi Marauder is in orbit conducting surface scans. 2 smaller vessels, confirmed Maquis raiders, are positioned near the 3rd planet, likely using it as cover. Additionally, I am detecting 3 cloaked vessels using Romulan signature masking. Velix ships, Worf rumbled. Watching and waiting. There are also 4 Bajoran colony ships on the surface of Dacra 4, Data continued. Population approximately 8,000, distributed across 3 settlements. And Captain, I am detecting significant ancient energy signatures emanating from subsurface structures approximately 200 kilometers south of the primary colony. McKay nearly jumped from his seat. That's it. That's got to be the outpost. What kind of power readings? Minimal, Data said. Residual emissions only, consistent with technology in standby mode or significantly depleted. However, the architectural profile matches the patterns from Atlantis. The structure extends at least 500 meters underground. That's massive, Shepard said, studying the tactical display. An installation that size could house a lot more than just a Stargate. Including ZPMs, McKay said hopefully. Captain, we need to get down there immediately. Not quite yet, Doctor, Picard said calmly. He gestured to the view screen, where the Ferengi Marauder was clearly visible. We need to understand the situation on the ground first. Lieutenant Worf, hail the Ferengi vessel. The face that appeared on screen was quintessentially Ferengi, large lobes, sharp teeth, and an expression of calculating avarice. I am Daimon Goss of the Marauder Opportunity. Your Captain Picard, the Federation officer traveling with the city ship refugees. I've been expecting you. Have you indeed? Picard said. And what brings you to Dacra 4, Daimon? The 102nd rule of acquisition, Gauss replied cheerfully. Nature decays, but latinum lasts forever. Or in this case, ancient technology. I've got salvage rights filed with the Bajoran Provisional Government. Whatever's down in that installation is mine to recover and sell. Those rights would be disputed, Picard pointed out. The Bajorans have tenuous authority here at best. Authority is what you can enforce, Captain. And I've got a legitimate business claim filed in triplicate. Can your refugees say the same? Weir stepped forward. Daimon Gauss, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Weir. The technology on Dacra 4 may be ancient in origin. My people are experts in ancient systems. We're the only ones who can safely access and activate it. Gauss's expression shifted to one of commercial interest. Ah, now we're talking. Dr. Weir, I'm a reasonable Ferengi. I'm not greedy, just ambitious. How about this, you provide the expertise, I provide the legal protection and salvage infrastructure, we split whatever we find 60-40. 60 in whose favor? McKay asked suspiciously. Mine, of course. I'm taking all the legal risk here. Absolutely not, Weir said firmly. Any ancient technology we recover stays with us. It's too dangerous to be sold on the open market. Gauss's expression soured. Then you're going to have a problem, Doctor. Because the moment you set foot on that planet, you're in violation of my salvage claim. I'll have to file a complaint with the Bajoran authorities, which will trigger an investigation, which will take weeks to resolve, during which time, no one touches the installation. Is that really what you want? Picard's expression hardened. Daimon Gauss, I would advise you not to interfere with a legitimate scientific expedition. The Federation has significant interest in this site. As does the Star Empire, a new voice interjected. The view screen split, showing both Gauss and Commander Velek. The Romulan smile was cold. Captain Picard, I believe we all have claims to consider. Perhaps we should discuss this in person. A meeting on neutral ground to establish protocols. Neutral ground? Shepard said. There's a Borg sphere in this system. Nobody's ground is neutral. Precisely why we should cooperate, Velek said smoothly. The Borg represent a threat to all of us. Surely we can set aside our differences long enough to secure the ancient installation before the collective decides to assimilate it. Data looked up from his console, his expression troubled. Captain, the Borg sphere is altering course. It is moving toward Dacra 4. How long until it reaches orbit? Picard demanded. Approximately 4 hours at current velocity. The view screen now showed all three parties, Ferengi, Romulan, and the Enterprise crew. An uneasy silence fell as everyone processed the implications. 4 hours, Weir said. We either work together and get in and out fast, or we waste time arguing while the Borg take everything. The human makes sense, Gauss admitted reluctantly. Fine. Temporary cooperation. But I'm keeping detailed records of everyone's contribution for the eventual property dispute. Acceptable, Velek said. Captain Picard, I propose a joint expedition. Mixed teams, shared intelligence, coordinated extraction. We retrieve what we can before the Borg arrive, then disperse. We can argue about ownership later. Picard looked at Weir, who nodded slowly. It wasn't ideal, but the alternative was worse. Agreed, Picard said. However, I insist on command of the operation. This will be a Federation-led expedition with Allied support. Naturally, Velek said, his tone suggesting he had no intention of actually following Federation command. We'll beam down our specialists momentarily. The transmissions ended, and the bridge erupted in controlled activity. This is a disaster, McKay said. We're going to have Romulans and Ferengi crawling all over ancient technology. Do you know how many ways this can go wrong? Fewer ways than dealing with the Borg alone, Picard said firmly. Dr. Weir, assemble your team. We beam down in 10 minutes. Mr. Worf, you'll lead security. Mr. Data, your technical expertise will be essential. Dr. Crusher, prepare medical supplies for field conditions. Captain, I should go as well, Geordi said. If there's technical integration between Federation and ancient systems, I can help facilitate it. Agreed. Everyone, full field gear. Expect hostile conditions and be prepared for rapid extraction. As the team assembled in the transporter room, Weir found herself standing beside Picard. Captain, thank you for trusting my judgment on this. Dr. Weir, in my experience, the most important decisions are often made under pressure with incomplete information. You've demonstrated sound judgment thus far. I'm trusting you to continue. The transporter room filled with personnel, Enterprise crew in their standard uniforms, Atlantis team in their tactical gear, even 3 Romulan operatives who materialized with cold efficiency. The Ferengi Daimon Goss appeared with 2 guards, all carrying what looked like scanning equipment. Everyone clear on the plan? Picard asked. We proceed to the ancient installation, Dr. McKay and Commander Data lead technical assessment, security teams establish perimeter, we recover any accessible technology, and we leave before the Borg arrive. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. And if we find something worth fighting for? Velik asked. Then we establish an orderly extraction protocol, Picard said firmly. We're all walking out of this alive and with something to show for it. That's the goal. Energize, Picard ordered. The surface of Dacra 4 was desolate. They materialized in what had once been a forest, charred stumps and ash-covered soil stretching to the horizon. The air was breathable but tasted of industrial pollutants. In the distance, a Bajoran settlement struggled to survive, dome-covered structures protecting against the harsh environment. Cheerful place, Ronan muttered, his weapon already drawn. Data's tricorder was out immediately. The ancient installation is 300 meters ahead, bearing 147. I am detecting an entrance structure partially buried by mining debris. The group moved carefully across the wasteland, weapons ready, scanners active. Worf's security team maintained formation while the Romulan operatives spread out, conducting their own reconnaissance. Daimon Goss was sweating despite the cool temperature. This is Cardassian mining devastation. They stripped this world to bedrock looking for uridium. Barbarians. Says the Ferengi salvager, Shepard noted dryly. I salvage with proper documentation, Goss protested. Very different. They crested a ridge and stopped. Below them, partially excavated from decades of accumulated debris, stood an ancient structure. It was unmistakable, the same architectural style as Atlantis, all flowing curves and opalescent metal. A doorway stood open, darkness beyond. Incredible, Picard breathed. The ancients were here. In this galaxy, millions of years ago. McKay was already scanning. I'm reading power conduits, control systems, structural integrity fields, all offline but intact. This place has been dormant for a very long time, but it's operational. We can power it up. The question is, should we? Taylor said quietly. Everyone looked at her. The ancients abandoned their technology for reasons, she continued. Sometimes those reasons were to protect others from what they had created. Activating an unknown installation without understanding its purpose could be dangerous. She's right, Data said. However, we have limited time. The Borg sphere will arrive in 3 hours and 40 minutes. We must balance caution with efficiency. One of the Romulan operatives, a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes, stepped forward. I am Centurion Tvel of the Tal Shir. My orders are to secure ancient technology for the Empire. However, I acknowledge that reckless activation could destroy what we came to claim. I propose we proceed systematically. Establish power, assess systems, extract what we can, seal the installation behind us. Reasonable, Picard agreed. Dr. McKay, can you restore power? Probably, McKay said, already moving toward the entrance. But I'll need help. Data, you're with me. The rest of you, establish security perimeter, and for the love of, whatever's holy in this universe, don't touch anything that glows. The expedition descended into the ancient installation. Emergency lighting activated as they entered, dim but sufficient. The interior was pristine, no dust, no decay, as if the ancients had left yesterday rather than millions of years ago. Stasis field, Data observed. The installation has maintained atmospheric and environmental controls through passive systems. Remarkable engineering. They moved through corridors that felt hauntingly familiar to the Atlantis team. Control interfaces, doorways that responded to proximity, holographic displays flickering to life as they passed. This is definitely ancient, McKay confirmed, his voice echoing. But the layout is different from Atlantis. This isn't a city, it's something else. A research facility, maybe, or a... He stopped. They'd entered a massive chamber, easily 200 meters across. In the center stood the Stargate, 9 chevrons, ancient symbols, the familiar ring that connected worlds across galaxies. But it was dark, inactive, clearly without power. The Stargate, Weir breathed. It's real. The ancients built a gate network in this universe too. Not just the gate, Geordi said, pointing. Around the chamber's perimeter stood dozens of cylindrical structures, each one glowing faintly with internal power. Are those ZPMs? McKay said, his voice cracking with emotion. Dozens of them. This was a power station. The ancients stored ZPMs here to supply their gate network. How many are functional? Picard asked. Data was already scanning. Of the 47 visible ZPMs, approximately 12 retain sufficient charge to be useful. The others are depleted or damaged. 12, Weir said. That's more than enough. We could power Atlantis for centuries. If we can extract them before the Borg arrive, Worf reminded everyone. Daimon Goss was practically salivating. 12 power sources that can run a city for centuries. Do you have any idea what those are worth on the open market? They're not going to market, Shepard said flatly. These stay with us or get sealed back underground. Actually, Centurion Tvell said, her hand moving toward her weapon, I believe the Empire has a claim to at least some of these resources. Particularly given the reparations owed for our destroyed warbuds. Worf's phaser was out instantly. You will stand down, Centurion. The Romulan operatives drew their own weapons. The Ferengi guards powered up energy rifles. The Atlantis team raised their weapons. In seconds, everyone was aimed at everyone else in a tense standoff. Stop. Picard's voice cut through the tension. We are not doing this. Lower your weapons. All of you. Now. Nobody moved. Captain, Tvell said coldly, the Empire will not be denied what it is owed. And Atlantis will not surrender its only chance for survival, Weir countered. Data's voice was calm but urgent. I am detecting a change in the Borg sphere's trajectory. It has accelerated and altered course directly for this location. ETA now 1 hour and 40 minutes. Additionally, the sphere is generating an unusually powerful scanning beam. They have detected the ZPMs. Then we're out of time for posturing, Picard said. Here's what's going to happen. Dr. McKay and Mr. LaForge will extract as many ZPMs as possible. Atlantis takes what they need to survive, 3 ZPMs. The remainder are sealed in this facility until the Federation, Romulan Empire, and Atlantis can negotiate proper distribution. Does anyone have a better plan that doesn't end with the Borg assimilating everything? The silence stretched. Finally, Tvell lowered her weapon. Acceptable. For now. I want documentation, Goss insisted. Notarized records of what's extracted and what remains. Fine, Weir said. Rodney, Geordi, get to work. Everyone else, prepare for extraction. We've got less than 2 hours. What followed was controlled chaos. McKay and Geordi worked frantically to disconnect ZPMs from the ancient power grid. The engineering was complex. Each ZPM was integrated into multiple systems, requiring careful shutdown sequences to avoid catastrophic power feedback. Meanwhile, Data had activated the facility's monitoring systems. On holographic displays, they could watch the Borg sphere approaching, a perfect geometric nightmare growing larger with each passing minute. 1 hour 15 minutes, Data announced. We're going as fast as we can. McKay shouted, sweat pouring down his face. These things aren't designed for rapid extraction. Ronan and Worf's security teams had established defensive positions at the installation's entrance. Through the doorway, they could see the Bajoran settlement in the distance, civilians going about their desperate survival, unaware that a Borg sphere was approaching. Captain, Taylor said quietly, should we not warn the Bajorans? They have no defenses against the Borg. Picard's expression was pained. If we warn them, they'll panic. Evacuate. And we don't have the resources to evacuate 8,000 people in the time available. So we let them die. Taylor challenged. No, Picard said firmly. We complete our mission quickly and ensure the Borg have no reason to linger on this planet. If the sphere is only interested in ancient technology, they'll ignore the settlement once we've removed the ZPMs. You're gambling with their lives, Shepard said. I'm making an impossible choice, Picard corrected. Welcome to command, Colonel. 50 minutes, Data called out. Got 2. Geordi announced, carefully lifting a cylinder of crystalline technology. These things are heavy. We'll need anti-grav units to transport them. Beam them directly to the Enterprise, Picard ordered. Picard to ship. Prepare to receive cargo transport, coordinates attached. Multiple trips, priority urgency. 3 disconnected, McKay added, triumph in his voice. We're actually doing this. Weir. The lights flickered. Then died. Then came back on red. What was that? Weir demanded. Data's console lit up with warnings. The Borg sphere has entered orbit and is deploying transport platforms. They are beaming drones directly to the planet's surface. Estimated arrival at this location, 7 minutes. They're not waiting, Worf growled. They're coming for us now. Picard's decision was instant. Extract what we have. Seal the facility. We leave. Now. We've only got 3 ZPMs disconnected. McKay protested. Then we take 3, Picard said. It's that or face assimilation. Everyone, move. The extraction was rushed, chaotic. Geordi and McKay grabbed the disconnected ZPMs while Data activated the facility's security protocols. Blast doors began sliding shut, sealing deeper sections. The Stargate, Weir said, looking back at the ancient ring. We're just leaving it. We're alive, Shepard said, pulling her toward the exit. That's what matters. They emerged from the installation just as the first Borg drones materialized on the ridge above them. Pale, mechanical nightmares with glowing implants and purposeful movements. We are the Borg, came the unified voice. You will be assimilated. Resistance is. Ronan's weapon took down the first drone. Worf's phaser dropped the second. The Romulan operatives fired with lethal precision. Enterprise, emergency beam out. Picard ordered. All personnel, now. The transporter beam caught them just as more drones materialized. Reality dissolved into golden light, and when it reformed, they were in the Enterprise's transporter room, breathing hard, staring at each other in shock. Report, Picard said immediately. All personnel accounted for, the transporter chief confirmed. 3 ZPMs secured in Cargo Bay 2. The Borg? Weir asked. Moving into the facility, data reported via comm. However, the security protocols you activated are slowing their progress significantly. It will take them approximately 30 minutes to penetrate the deeper levels. And the Bajorans? Kayla pressed. The sphere is ignoring the settlement, Picard said, relief evident in his voice. They're focused entirely on the installation. Your gamble paid off, Captain. But Shepard wasn't celebrating. 3 ZPMs. We went through all that for 3. 3 is enough, Weir said firmly. We'll make it enough. As the Enterprise broke orbit, accelerating away from Dacra 4, they watched on the view screen as the Borg sphere settled over the ancient facility. Green beams carved through the planet's surface, extracting, analyzing, assimilating. They're going to take everything, McKay said quietly. They're going to try, Picard corrected. But ancient technology has proven resistant to Borg assimilation before. Those security protocols, the stasis fields, the self-destruct mechanisms the ancients built in, the Borg may find they've bitten off more than they can chew. In the cargo bay, 3 crystalline cylinders sat in protective containers. 3 zero-point modules containing enough power to keep Atlantis alive for decades. It wasn't everything they'd hoped for. But it was enough. And in a universe where they had nothing, enough was a victory. The return journey to Starbase 157 felt longer than the departure, despite covering the same distance at the same warp speed. The Enterprise's corridors buzzed with subdued conversation, relief at survival mixed with frustration at leaving so much behind. In the cargo bay, the 3 ZPM sat under heavy guard, their crystalline surfaces pulsing with barely perceptible energy that made even the most seasoned engineers approach with caution. Weir stood in Picard's ready room, watching through the viewport as stars streaked past. Behind her, she could hear the captain preparing tea with the careful precision of ritual. Earl Grey, Picard said, offering her a cup. I find it helps after difficult missions. A moment of civilization amid chaos. Weir accepted the cup, finding unexpected comfort in its warmth. Thank you, Captain. For everything. We literally couldn't have survived without your help. You would have found a way, Picard said, settling into his chair. Dr. Weir, I've dealt with many displaced peoples over the years. Some crumble under the pressure of finding themselves in unfamiliar circumstances. Your expedition has adapted with remarkable resilience. We've had practice, Weir said with a tired smile. The Pegasus Galaxy wasn't exactly welcoming when we first arrived. We've learned to adapt or die. And now you face a different challenge, Picard observed. In the Pegasus Galaxy, you knew your enemy, the Wraith. Here, you must navigate a complex web of alliances, treaties, and competing interests. In some ways, that may prove more difficult than warfare. Weir sipped her tea, considering his words. Captain, I need to ask, what happens now? We have power for Atlantis, but we're still refugees in a universe we don't understand. The Romulans want reparations. The Klingon want alliance. The Cardassians want intelligence. The Ferengi want profit. Where does that leave us? Picard was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. The Federation Council will reconvene to discuss your status. Admiral Nechayev mentioned that opinion is divided. Some see you as potential allies, explorers like ourselves, sharing common values. Others see you as a destabilizing force, possessing technology that could upset the balance of power. And you? Weir asked. What do you see? I see people far from home, trying to survive with honor and dignity, Picard said simply. I see an expedition that values exploration and discovery, that fights only when necessary, that showed mercy to Romulan survivors when they could have simply let them die. Those are Federation values, Dr. Weir. Whether you formally join us or not, I believe we're natural allies. But the political reality is complex. The The Romulan Senate won't forget 93 dead crew members. They'll push for concessions, probably demand access to some of your technology as compensation. The Klingon will continue courting you, hoping to draw you into their sphere of influence. And the Borg. He paused. The Borg now know ancient technology exists in this galaxy. They will search for more. Weir felt the weight of it pressing down on her. So we're trapped. Too valuable to ignore, too dangerous to fully trust, too weak to stand alone. Not trapped, Picard corrected. Positioned. You have options, Dr. Weir. More than you realize. He leaned forward. The Federation isn't perfect. We have bureaucracy, regulations, endless committee meetings. But we also have resources, scientific expertise, diplomatic networks, and military protection. If Atlantis were to formally request Federation membership or protectorate status, you'd gain significant advantages. At the cost of autonomy, Weir said. At the cost of complete autonomy, Picard agreed. But you'd retain significant self-governance. Federation member worlds maintain their own governments, their own laws, their own identities. You wouldn't become Federation drones, you'd become Federation partners. And our technology? The ancient systems? Would we be required to share them? Picard's expression was honest. Eventually, yes. The Federation is built on shared knowledge. But we're not the Borg, we don't assimilate by force. The process would be gradual, collaborative, respectful of your concerns. And in exchange, you'd gain access to our technology as well. Before Weir could respond, Picard's combadge chirped. Bridge to Captain. We're receiving an urgent transmission from Starbase 157. Commander Savak reports multiple ships have arrived at the station requesting to speak with Atlantis representatives. Who? Picard asked. Romulan diplomatic vessel, Klingon cruiser, Cardassian science ship, and... There was a pause. A civilian transport claiming to represent the Bajoran Provisional Government. Weir and Picard exchanged glances. It appears word travels fast, Picard observed. The Bajorans, Weir said. Captain, we were just on their planet. We took ancient technology from their soil. They have a legitimate claim. They do, Picard agreed. Which makes this situation even more complicated. Dr. Weir, I suggest you prepare your team. When we arrive at the Starbase, you're going to have a very full schedule of diplomatic meetings. Atlantis hung in space near Starbase 157, its lights brighter now that power was no longer a desperate concern. The 3 ZPMs had been installed, integrated into the city's power grid with McKay's characteristic combination of genius and neurotic perfectionism. Systems that had been offline flickered back to life. Shield strength climbed to 70%. The city breathed easier, and so did its inhabitants. In the control room, the leadership team gathered around the central console. Through the windows, they could see the assembled fleet, Enterprise, 3 Romulan warbuds maintaining respectful distance, a Klingon battlecruiser, the Cardassian science vessel, and a small Bajoran transport that looked held together by faith and determination. Everyone wants a piece of us, Shepard observed. Some things don't change regardless of universe. The question is how we handle it, Weir said. She looked around at her team, exhausted, battle-worn, but unbroken. We need to make decisions. Long-term decisions about our future here. I vote we find another empty part of space and hide until we figure out how to get home, McKay suggested. That's not viable long-term, Taylor said gently. We need resources, trade relationships, allies. We cannot survive in isolation. The Klingon offer freedom, Ronan pointed out. Fight beside them, keep our independence, no committees telling us what to do. The Klingon also offer constant warfare, Weir countered. We'd be expected to join their military campaigns, fight their enemies. Is that the future we want? The Federation offers stability, Shepard said slowly. Everyone looked at him, surprised. I'm not saying I like all the regulations, but Picard kept his word. His crew risked themselves for us. Data saved our lives when he disrupted the Borg. That counts for something. It does, Weir agreed. But joining the Federation means accepting we're not going home. It means committing to building a future in this universe, not just surviving until we find a way back to ours. The words hung heavy in the air. Until now, they'd been focused on immediate survival, power, resources, security. But this decision was different. This was about accepting reality, about choosing a path forward rather than clinging to impossible hope. There is no way home, McKay said quietly. I've been running the calculations since we arrived. The dimensional rift was a random quantum fluctuation. The probability of recreating those exact conditions is astronomically small. Even if we could, there's no guarantee it would take us back to our universe rather than some other alternate reality. So we're truly stranded, Taylor said. We're truly here, we're corrected. And we need to decide if here becomes home. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded. Not the harsh klaxon of combat warnings, but a priority communication signal. It's from Earth, the communications officer reported, his voice awed. Federation Council President Jesinho is requesting to speak with Dr. Weir directly. The President of the Federation. Weir took a steadying breath and smoothed her jacket. Put him through. The holographic display resolved into an older man with pale blue skin and wise eyes, an Ephrosion, Data had once explained. His expression was kind but carried the weight of leadership. Dar. Elizabeth Weir, he said, his voice resonant. I am President Jesinho. I wanted to speak with you personally before you begin the series of diplomatic meetings awaiting you at Starbase 157. Mr. President, I'm honored. The honor is mine, Doctor. Your expedition's arrival has caused considerable discussion within the Federation Council. Some view it with excitement, a chance to learn from travelers from another reality. Others view it with concern. Particularly regarding your advanced technology and the diplomatic complications your presence has created. I understand, Mr. President. We didn't choose to come here, but we're trying to handle the situation responsibly. You've done more than that, Jesinho said. Captain Picard's reports indicate you've conducted yourselves with honor, shown mercy when you could have chosen vengeance, and demonstrated willingness to cooperate despite being in a position of vulnerability. These are not small things. Thank you, sir. Which brings me to my purpose in contacting you directly. Dr. Weir, the Federation would like to formally offer Atlantis Protectorate status pending full membership consideration. Under this arrangement, you would retain autonomous governance of your city while receiving Federation protection, resources, and diplomatic support. You would have time to learn our ways, to decide if Federation membership aligns with your values, without pressure or obligation. Weir felt her heart racing. That's generous, Mr. President. What would be required of U.S. cooperation with Starfleet security protocols? Participation in regional defense if the Federation is attacked. And a commitment to work toward mutual understanding, sharing knowledge gradually, learning from each other, building trust over time. No immediate technology transfers, no forced integration. Just partnership. And if we decline, then you would be treated as an independent entity within Federation space. Respected but not protected, tolerated but not supported. You would face diplomatic challenges alone, navigate the Romulans, Klingon, and others without Federation backing. It would be difficult, Dr. Weir. Not impossible, but difficult. Weir looked at her team. Shepard gave a slight nod. McKay shrugged, not quite acceptance but not refusal either. Taylor's expression was thoughtful, calculating. Ronan just waited, trusting her judgment. Mr. President, I'd like to accept pending approval from my senior staff and the expedition's governing council. But I believe protectorate status represents our best path forward. We came here by accident, but we don't have to remain accidents. We can become part of something larger. Jesinho smiled. That is the spirit that built the Federation, Doctor. Take the time you need to consult with your people. When you're ready, we'll formalize the arrangement. And Dr. Weir. Welcome to the Alpha Quadrant. I suspect your presence here will prove to be more fortunate than any of us can yet imagine. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Weir felt the weight of the decision settling, not oppressive, but substantial. They'd chosen a path. Not home, but forward. Well, McKay said finally, I guess we're Federation now. Does this mean I have to wear one of those ridiculous uniforms? You're not Starfleet, Rodney, Shepard said with a slight smile. You're still Atlantis Expedition. Just, with backup. The Romulans will be furious, Taylor observed. They'll see this as the Federation claiming us. Let them be furious, Ronan said. Better to face them with allies than alone. Weir moved to the window, looking out at the assembled fleet. Each ship represented a different path they could have taken: Romulan alliance, Klingon partnership, Cardassian cooperation, Bajoran connection. But the Enterprise sat among them, steady and reliable, representing principles that felt most like the ones they'd carried from their own universe. All hands, she said over the citywide comm, this is Dr. Weir. I want to inform you all that we've been offered Federation Protectorate status. Over the next few days, we'll be holding town meetings to discuss what this means for our future. Your voices matter. Your concerns matter. This decision belongs to all of us, not just leadership. We came to the Pegasus Galaxy as explorers. We survived the Wraith as warriors. Now we have the chance to become something else here. Partners, allies, members of a civilization that values discovery and cooperation. I believe it's a chance worth taking. As she finished speaking, Picard's voice came through her comm badge. Dr. Weir, the diplomatic delegations are requesting meetings. The Romulans first, they're insisting on discussing reparations. Then the Bajorans want to talk about the Dacra 4 site. The Klingon and Cardassians have also requested time. Of course they have, Weir said with a tired smile. Captain, would you be willing to sit in on these meetings? Your diplomatic expertise would be valuable. I would be honored, Picard replied. Though I must warn you, negotiating with Romulans requires patience, subtlety, and the ability to maintain composure when they're being deliberately infuriating. Sounds like negotiating with the IOA back home, Weir said. I think I can manage. The conference room aboard Starbase 157 was neutral territory, not quite Federation, not quite anything else. Commander Savak had arranged it with Vulcan precision, sufficient seating, adequate refreshments, proper lighting. Everything organized to minimize conflict and maximize productive dialogue. The first meeting was with the Romulans. Commander Velik entered with 2 aides, all wearing expressions of calculated displeasure. They sat across from Weir, Picard, and Shepard with the bearing of people who believed themselves wronged. Dr. Weir, Velik began without preamble. The Romulan Star Empire has suffered significant losses due to your arrival. 93 military personnel dead, 3 warbuds destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The Senate demands compensation. Your vessels fired on us without provocation, Shepard said, his voice controlled but firm. We defended ourselves. You destroyed ships conducting legitimate security reconnaissance, Velik countered. An overreaction that constituted disproportionate force. Picard intervened smoothly. Commander, let's establish some baseline facts. Your vessels approached Atlantis with active weapons, conducted hostile scans, and fired first. Under Federation law, and I suspect under Romulan military doctrine as well, that constitutes initiation of hostilities. Atlantis's response, while devastating, was legally defensible self-defense. Velik's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Captain Picard, I expected you to defend your new allies. However, legality is only one dimension of this situation. There is also the matter of pragmatism. The Senate wants something from this situation. If they don't receive satisfaction, they will pursue other avenues, diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions, perhaps covert operations to acquire the technology they believe they're owed. Are you threatening us? Shepard asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. I'm explaining reality, Velik said. Dr. Weir, I understand you've accepted Federation Protectorate status. That's your choice. But understand that such status doesn't erase debts. The Empire has a long memory and considerable patience. One way or another, we will receive what we're owed. Weir met his gaze steadily. Commander Velik, I'm prepared to offer humanitarian compensation. Medical supplies, technology to assist Romulan survivors' recovery, perhaps scientific data that doesn't compromise security. But we will not provide weapons technology or tactical information. Those are non-negotiable. Insufficient, Velik said immediately. Then we're at an impasse, we replied. Because those are my terms. The Federation has agreed to help mediate this dispute. If the Senate rejects reasonable compensation, that reflects poorly on their willingness to engage in good faith diplomacy. Velik studied her for a long moment, then stood. I will relay your offer to the Senate. They will, of course, reject it. But perhaps over time, as circumstances change, more reasonable arrangements can be reached. Dr. Weir, Captain Picard, until we meet again. After the Romulans departed, Shepard let out a breath. That went better than expected. Did it? Weir asked. He didn't threaten assassination or sabotage, Picard observed. By Romulan standards, that was almost cordial. He's positioning for long-term negotiation rather than immediate retaliation. That's acceptable. The Bajoran delegation was different entirely. They arrived not in military uniforms but simple, well-worn clothing. The leader was a woman named Kira Nerys, a former resistance fighter, according to Savac's briefing, now serving as the liaison for Bajoran colonies in the Valo system. Dr. Weir, she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd seen too much suffering. I'm not here to make demands or threats. I'm here to understand what happened on Dacra 4. That's our planet. Our people are trying to rebuild there after decades of Cardassian occupation. When you took technology from beneath our soil, you took from us. Major Kira, Weir began. Just Kira, please. I'm not military anymore. Just someone trying to help her people survive. Weir felt immediate kinship with this woman. They'd both led people through impossible situations, made hard choices, carried the weight of others' survival. Kira, you're right. We came to your planet and took ancient technology without permission. We were desperate. Without power, our city would have died. But that doesn't excuse the violation of your sovereignty. Kira seemed surprised by the admission. You're not going to claim salvage rights or Federation authority. No, Weir said simply. What we did was necessary for our survival, but it wasn't right. I'm prepared to offer compensation, resources, technology, assistance for your colonies. And if there's more ancient technology on Dacra 4, once the Borg leave, we'll help you secure it properly. The Borg, Kira said, her expression darkening. We saw them. A massive cube in orbit, cutting into the planet with green beams. Are they going to come for our people? No, Picard assured her. The Borg were interested only in the ancient installation. Now that the ZPMs have been removed and the facility sealed, they have no reason to remain. They'll likely withdraw within days. And if there's more technology down there? Kira pressed. Then we help you defend it, Weir said. Kira, I'm not your enemy. Neither is the Federation. We want to help Bajorans rebuild, to help your colonies thrive. Let's work together, not against each other. Kira studied her for a moment, then extended her hand. All right, Dr. Weir. Let's try partnership. The prophets know we could use allies who actually give a damn about more than just exploiting us. As Kira left, Weir felt something shift. Not every diplomatic encounter had to be adversarial. Some could actually be the beginning of something positive. The meetings continued through the day, Klingon expressing grudging respect and leaving their alliance offer open, Cardassians probing for information and finding none, Ferengi negotiating for trade routes and technology licensing. Each conversation was a piece of the larger puzzle that was becoming Atlantis's place in this universe. By evening, Weir found herself back on Atlantis, standing in her office and staring at the star map Data had provided. It showed the Alpha Quadrant, Federation territory in blue, Romulan in green, Klingon in red, dozens of other powers in various colors. And now, one small dot representing Atlantis, linked to the Federation but still separate. Shepard entered without knocking, a habit she'd long since stopped trying to break. Long day. Long week, Weir corrected. Long month, really, if you count the time since we left Pegasus. Do you think we made the right choice? Federation Protectorate? I think we made the only choice that gave us a real future, Weir said. Shepard, we're not going home. McKay's right, the odds are astronomical. This is home now. These people, this galaxy, these stars. We can spend years mourning what we lost, or we can build something new. Building something new, Shepard mused. The ancients did that. Left their home galaxy, came to Pegasus, built Atlantis. Maybe we're just following their pattern. Maybe we are, Weir said. She pulled up a file on her console, the initial framework for Federation Protectorate status, hundreds of pages of protocols and agreements. This is going to be complicated. Learning their laws, integrating our systems, figuring out how to maintain our identity while becoming part of something larger. We'll manage, Shepard said with quiet confidence. We always do. Through the window, the Enterprise passed by on patrol, its light steady in the darkness. Beyond it, the Pulsar Nebula swirled with colors that didn't exist in their home universe. And beyond that, an entire galaxy full of civilizations to meet, worlds to explore, discoveries to make. They'd come through the Stargate seeking adventure. They'd found the Wraith and fought for survival. They'd been flung across dimensional boundaries into an unknown universe. And now, impossibly, they were finding their place. Not as conquerors or refugees. Not as victims or threats. As explorers. As partners. As something new. The city of Atlantis had traveled across galaxies, across dimensions, across the boundaries of reality itself. And now, in the Star Trek universe, under strange stars among alien civilizations, it had found something it hadn't had since leaving Earth so long ago. It had found a home. The months that followed were not easy, but they were purposeful. Atlantis established itself as a Federation protectorate, navigating the complex diplomatic waters of the Alpha Quadrant with growing skill. McKay and his team worked alongside Federation scientists, carefully sharing ancient technology principles while learning about Federation engineering. Shepard's military unit coordinated with Starfleet tactical divisions, preparing for threats both known and unknown. The Borg remained a constant concern. 3 more attempts to raid ancient sites required intervention. But with Federation support and Atlantis's weapons, each incursion was repelled. The collective learned that ancient technology was defended by forces they could not easily overcome. The Romulans, true to Velik's word, continued their long game, diplomatic pressure, intelligence gathering, occasional overtures for mutually beneficial arrangements. Weir handled each encounter with the same steady patience, giving nothing that would compromise security, offering cooperation where their interests aligned. The Klingon, surprisingly, became occasional allies. When the Dominion launched incursions from the Gamma Quadrant, Atlantis stood with the Federation fleet, ancient drones proving devastatingly effective against Jem'Hadar attack ships. Chancellor Gowron himself sent a message, "You fight with honor." The Empire respects this. The Bajorans became genuine friends. Kira's colonies received Atlantis support, medical technology, agricultural assistance, defensive systems. In return, they provided intelligence on Cardassian movements and safe harbors when needed. It was the kind of relationship the Atlantis expedition had always valued, mutual respect between equals. And through it all, the city endured. Its spires rose above the Paulson Nebula, a testament to ancient engineering and human determination. 300 souls who'd left Earth to explore the Pegasus Galaxy had found themselves explorers of an entirely new reality. They'd lost their home but gained a new one. They'd lost their mission but found a better purpose. They'd learned what the Federation had known for centuries, that exploration wasn't about conquest or dominance. It was about connection. About finding common ground among the stars. About proving that different civilizations, different universes even, could work together towards something greater than themselves. Dar. Elizabeth Weir stood in the control room, now expanded with both ancient and Federation technology working in harmony.